Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. This is story about what if Naruto Uzumaki is brutally assaulted a week before the Genin exams and decides to make a deal with the devil. Part 1. Before I start, please do support for more amazing content and comments for part 2. Do consider to subscribe my channel and share my video to your friends and check out the description as well. Let's start the video. Loud laughter and screams fill the air of a secluded training ground of Konohagakure, or the village hidden in the leaf. A group of men and few women gather around the writhing form of a young blonde, her blue eyes vacant and the whiskers on her cheeks covered with blood and semen. On top her body was a young man with short brown hair, red marking on his cheeks as he ruts his classmate like a craven dog. Near the boy was another with black hair shaped like a duck's ass, and his dark eyes shine with arrogance. The feral boy grunts and pulls out as his cum spurts on the blonde's exposed belly. Ha ha ha, damn, that was nice. Oi Sasuke, want another crack at this bitch, he says. The now named Sasuke scoffs with a fold off his arms. No Kiba, he says, walking off. Kiba zips up his pants and walks off through the crowd as a strawberry blonde sneers at the half-naked and violated girl. Let this be lesson to you, demon, your kind is not worthy to be a shinobi, she sneers. The crowd starts to disperse as the rain starts to fall, and leaving the blonde to be found by Anbu or die from the elements. On the roof opposite the scene stood a tall and broad-shouldered man, his steel blue eyes pinned on the young blonde's form, and his gaze drifts to the retreating crowd. The figure was not a shinobi or even dressed as a shinobi. The figure wears a white pinstripe three-piece suit with a black dress shirt and tie, black gloves on his hands and black cowboy boots. The figure's skin was pale but not deathly pale, his face handsome with a strong chin, straight slender nose and defined cheekbones with a mop of short spiky black hair and two bangs framing his face. Humans never cease to impress me with their depravity, he muses, his voice velvety and sexy. The man drops down and strolls toward the broken blonde, but gazes drifts to the night sky. Do you see, Kami, this how your sheep treat their supposed savior, your child of prophecy, he shouts, and a flash of lightning reveals a horned silhouette. The man kneels and picks up the blonde in his arms. Fufufu, I have such big plans for you, he says. The man heads for the Uchiha district, where a grievous massacre happened several years prior. The sole survivor of this massacre lives near but never sets foot on the grounds. The man strolls through as the lingering souls wailed like symphony to his ears. Finding a home, the man places the blonde on a bed. Naruto Uzumaki, the man muses and removes his glove. A black flame start form as he passes it over Naruto's body and burns away the semen, blood and other scars upon her body. The man places his bare hand on the seal upon her stomach. Time we meet, he muses. Inside the seal, Naruto sits with her knees hugged to her chest and her eyes staring at nothing. Inside the cage near her was the Kyuubi no Yoko. I told you, ninjin, they will never accept you. Now release the seal and set me free here, ors I would belay that request, a voice declares. Naruto barely turns to the sound as a man was walking out the shadows. Who are you, she asks, her voice barely audible. However, Kyuubi gasps in horror at the strolling figure. And no, how are you here? He roars, shocking Naruto. What do you mean? I am always here, everywhere and nowhere to and fro, searching for whom I may devour, the man states. Naruto looks between the two as Kyuubi was actually cowering before this man. Who are you, she asks. Who am I have many names, most unclean son of perdition, hehe, little horn, the morning star, Satan, Yami, Lucifer, but for now you may call me Mitsuomi Kiryu, the man states. Naruto stares incredulously at Mitsuomi with an agape mouth and wide eyes. The devil, boo, but she stammers. Mitsuomi titters softly and runs his hand on his cheek, expecting red skin, he says, his skin turning red. Horns and a tail, Mitsuomi says, mimicking horns and a tail as they form. Mitsuomi stomps his boot to make cloven feet. Better, he says, voice distorted and deep. Mitsuomi returns to normal with a crack of his neck, however this form is more aesthetically pleasing, he says. Why are you here? Kyuubi shouts. Mitsuomi glances to the fox but squats in front of Naruto. I saw the tail end of what those people did to you, your soul was screaming for help and begging Kami, why, he says. Naruto clutches her knees closer to her chest. You're right, I screamed, prayed and begged for Kami to send some to save me, but all got was mocking laughter from them and the violation of my body, she whispers. Kami does not answer prayer, she gave her favorite creations free will, however I answered your cries, Mitsuomi states. Kyuubi rams himself into the cage. Don't you dare accept anything from the Prince of Lies. He roars. Yet you and your siblings owe your very existences to me, Mitsuomi hisses, his eyes becoming a soulless black void. Kyuubi shirks under those blank orbs as Mitsuomi stands to his full height. You have heard of the Rikido Senin, correct, he states, and Naruto nods. Mitsuomi waves his hand and to create two recliners. Sit and I'll explain, he says, and Naruto hesitantly takes a seat. Long ago there was a tree and this tree produced a fruit. This fruit was partook by a woman called Kagaya Otsutsuki and mother of the Rikido Senin, but I'll get to that now. The fruit from the tree was tainted because that is where I fell, Mitsuomi explains. Naruko furrows her brow, but Fox growls. What he means is when Kami cast him out of heaven, he fell to earth and created the 9 circles in his wake. The Shinju grew on that cursed land, Kyuubi explains. Mitsuomi crosses his legs with an amused smirk. Correct, Kagaya gained godlike power and came to rule as the rabbit goddess, but the taint drove her to enslave the world, and ultimately her sons Hagoromo, the famed sage, and his brother Himura stopped her, but not before she became a calamity known as the Jubi. The brothers defeated her, and Hagoromo sealed the Jubi in himself, the husk of their mother, sealed in the moon, he explains and pauses. After that the sage spreads chakra to the world, and at the end of his life, he created the 9 Biju from the Jubi, and that is where I come in. I had been watching and decided to take the 9 to be guardians of the 9 circles, which they did, but centuries later all of them shirked their duties and fled back here, only to be made into weapons, Mitsuomi continues. Father wanted us to be free and not shackled to you, Lucifer, Kyuubi shouts. Mitsuomi only stares with a chuckle and shake of his head, yet all of you ruled your respective circles, but once I started to deal with the challenges to my throne, you all ran with your tails between legs. However, I plan to change that, and Naruto will be the one to do it, he says, and looks to Naruto. I offer you the power to show Kami and all of Konoha why they should not have denied you, Mitsuomi adds. Naruto's blue orbs widen, but Kyuubi ram the cage. Do not this ninja, you will condemn yourself to hell and damnation, he shouts. Naruto rises from the recliner and stares at the fox. Why should I not? Kami abandoned me. I was always good. I did as Gigi wanted and forgave the people. But what did it get me? I was beaten, tortured, raped. No longer, she shouts. Mitsuomi rises from his seat with a demonic grin. Then we have a deal. I will teach you the powers of hell, and you will bring them their true condemnation, he declares. Naruto's eyes slowly open as she was lifted off the bed, and her eyes met Mitsuomi's steel blue jewels. Yes, I accept, she says, leaning into his chest. Mitsuomi turns to a ring of fire appears. The faithful has lost her faith. The child of prophecy has fallen, he declares, as they vanish. Song ends. 1 week later. A week has passed since Naruto was assaulted and vanished without a trace with Mitsuomi. The day after the incident, several of the mob went to the spot and found no body. Panic set in as the girl may have been found, but that diminished as they searched her apartment complex and the hospital. The panic gave way to elation as the so-called demon whore had run off or died, causing several parties to break out as the days passed. The Hokage, who was in the capital, returned after 4 days to random people proclaiming Naruto's death. Sarutobi quickly had his Anbu search for the blonde, but found no trace of her. Some thought the older man was concerned for the girl's safety, but in actuality, he was livid that his weapon had vanished. Sarutobi had his rival Danzo Shimura's search Hai no Kuni for the blonde, but again found no trace. This started to worry the Sandaime and those on the council that supported the idea of Naruto being a weapon. However, 6 days after going missing, a letter arrived stating Naruto had left the village to train for the coming Genin exam and would arrive the next day. The letter also stated that she would be bringing someone looking to invest money in Konoha. This caught the eye of certain council members as they thought of milking this person for all they were worth and reinforcing the hidden seals on Naruto to ensure her weapon status. Konoha main gate. The Eternal Gate guardians Izumo and Kitetsu watch the sky as another boring day passes. Kitetsu looks out to the road as civilians and shinobi did their things, but something caught his eye. Down the road were 2 people, one dressed in a black suit and the other was a familiar young woman. Kitetsu taps Izumo and points. Is that Naruto, he says. Izumo looks and his breath hitches with a blush. Why, yeah, he sputters. Naruto's blonde hair now reaches past her rear and braided to her neck with black bow and the end with silver jewel bracelet. Her whiskers were no longer visible, but her blue eyes were now slitted and seemed mischievous. Naruto wears a white ribbon-tie dress with a Prussian blue jacket. She also wears a white pleated silk skirt with black gloves and heeled green-gray shoes. Mitsuomi was next to her and holding her hand as she holds an umbrella to block the sun. To feel the air on my skin after so long, Naruto muses. I apologize for the delay, my dear, Mitsuomi states. Naruto giggles softly and glances to impression of ring on her wedded finger. I'll forgive you, my king, she says, nearing the gate. Then Naruto, is that you, Izumo states. Naruto lifts her umbrella to show her face. Yes, I went out for some last-minute training and I brought someone for Gigi to meet, she says. Mitsuomi places his hand on his chest with a slight bow. Hello, I'm Mitsuomi Kiryu, he greets. Suddenly an Anbu with the designation of Nico appears. Naruto Hokage-sama wishes to see you and your guest, she notes. The fool works fast, both thought, and Naruto nods. Okay, Nico, Naruto says, as Nico grasps their shoulders and vanish. Damn, Naruto was actually looking really sexy, Izumo and Kitetsu nods. Yeah, no kidding, Kitetsu comments. The 3 soon appear in the Hokage's office as Sarutobi sits at his desk with his grandfatherly charm on max. Naruto-chan, I'm so glad you are okay, I was so worried, Sarutobi states. Naruto took a seat with a soft look. I'm sorry, Gigi, but I wanted to make you proud and train to become Kunoichi of the year, she explains. Sarutobi softly nods with a glance to Mitsuomi. And you are young man, he asks. Mitsuomi Kiryu, CEO and owner of Kiryu Incorporated. Mitsuomi greets and Sarutobi nearly chokes. The up-and-coming businessman, Sarutobi thought. Mitsuomi and Naruko internally smirk at the scent of Sarutobi's greed wafting around the room. How long will you be staying, Kiryu-san? Sarutobi asks. Naruko removes her black glove and raises her hand to show her ring. We plan to marry once I become a genin, she says. Sarutobi's heart nearly stops. Then if he were to die, all his wealth would be ours, he thought. A mini Sarutobi dancing. Oh, I see, then it was love at first sight, Sarutobi asks, and both nod with a laugh. Naruko rises from her seat. Gigi, I'll head to my apartment and prepare for tomorrow, she says. No need for that, Naruko-chan. You and Kiryu-san can take a suite at the Golden Leaf, and the exams start at 8 am, Sarutobi states, and both excuse themselves, as Sarutobi was devising ways to acquire Mitsuomi's money. Mitsuomi and Naruko stroll arm in arm through the village as some people recognize her, but most didn't, as her defining features were now gone. Mitsuomi purchases Ichiraku ramen when they stopped for lunch, much to Tucci and Am's shock, and shocked them more, asking them to be Naruko's personal chef. The pair soon arrive at the Golden Leaf, and Mitsuomi bought out the entire top floor to keep out prying eyes. A decent substitute for our bed, Naruko says, tossing her blue coat on a chair and plopping on the bed. Mitsuomi slips off his suit coat, vest and tie with an amused laugh. The sin is writhed in this village, he muses. Indeed, Sarutobi's greed was palpable, Naruko says, getting further in bed and kicking off her boots. Mitsuomi pours themselves a glass of red wine. Then you'll be able to find your 7 here, he asks, handing her a glass. Naruko sips her wine with a stare. I wanted to bring mother back, but I refused to violate her peace in heaven, she thought. Mitsuomi told her he could resurrect the dead from hell with ease, but pulling from heaven could shatter the soul. I have my eye on Tuanko Mitarashi for lust and Hinata Hyuga for envy, Naruko says. Mitsuomi takes a seat with a cross of his legs. That mousy girl that follows you around, he asks, but grins. I love the way you think, Mitsuomi adds, and Naruko titters, laying back on the bed and remembering her lifetime in hell. Flashback. 9th Circle of Hell. Mitsuomi and Naruko appear on the frozen lake of Cocytus. Welcome to the 9th Circle, the realm of traitors, he declares. Naruko looks around in wonder and awe. Around them were people frozen in ice, wailing in pain. Naruko hugs herself as Mitsuomi gazes to the broken but large statue at the center of the lake. This place is where those who betrayed family ties, betrayed community ties, betrayed guests, and betrayed lords, myself included, furthest from Kami's light, he says. Mitsuomi then turns to face Naruko and places his hand on her seal. Now for that fox, he says. Naruko cries out as red chakra bursts out as Mitsuomi thrusts his hand back. Naruko clutches her body and falls to her knees as her body spasms. Her blue pupils become slitted, her hair lengthens and her whiskers darken. 9 golden and red tipped tails emerge from her lower back as the Kyuubi forms opposite them as icy chains ensnare the fox. I only need the soul. Seems the demonic chakra has turned you in essence into the new Kyuubi, Mitsuomi states, creating a white trench coat. The coat was long with belt buckle motifs wrapped around the upper arm. From there a black stripe runs down and terminates with black cuffs. Naruko slowly gets to her feet as her tails swish and Mitsuomi slips the coat around her. Is this really me, she asks, staring at her reflection in the ice. Yes and no, annoying fox to hamper you, Mitsuomi says, as Kyuubi roars but sinks into the ice. Naruko clutches her coat closer. What can I learn in 7 days, she says. My dear, time passes quite differently here. In 7 days a lifetime can pass, Mitsuomi says, and Naruko was needless to say shocked. In time Naruko learned exactly what Mitsuomi meant as time passed in the blink of an eye. Naruko trained her body and traversed the 9 circles under Mitsuomi, or Lucifer's watchful eye. Lucifer went as far as to pop up Earth for things to learn, like items from Yazushi Ogakure, her clan's homeland. Naruko became a sponge for knowledge and as time passed reveled in her darker desires. 10 years later Naruko was declared the new queen of hell and Lucifer's wife after falling for the prince of lies. Naruko learned of Lucifer's origins as Kami's most beloved angel, dubbed the Morning Star. However, once Kami created humanity, he became envious of her love for them and his pride could not let him bow to them, causing him to rebel and be cast out of heaven. Naruko spent her free time corrupting humans to give into their sins and dealing with demons who challenged her rule as queen. Her most ardent challenger was Lilith, the succubus queen and former wife of Lucifer. Lilith felt Naruko was inferior to her and often mocked her former human status. However, the blonde kitsune demon made short work of Lilith. This garnered Naruko much support in hell from other demons and fiends, even more so when she defeated each of new lords of the other 8 circles. Lucifer felt Naruko was ready for anything and imbued her with his power and gifting her several abilities. First was the ultimate eye, granting her an extrasensory vision of her general surroundings, but the eye's true ability is precognition of her opponent's attacks. The second, the ultimate shield, granting her the ability to alter her body and make it as hard as diamond. The last was sword made from her nine-tailed fox form's fang and crafted into a special katana. Naruko often visited the other circles to learn from the various tortured souls, but she found a very useful tool in the circle of greed. Naruko found Fugaku Uchiha and using her powers, learned he possessed the Mangekyo Sharingan. Naruko took the eyes for herself as they would better help control the Biju once she returned. The evolved Sharingan took the form of 3 dots, followed by 3 curves spiraling counterclockwise around the pupil. A near lifetime later Lucifer and Naruko stood upon the frozen lake once again. Naruko now looked about 18 with her 9 tails swishing behind her, but from her left and right temples were 2 thick white horns protruding crookedly and black angel wings. "What do you propose we do with Kyuubi?" Lucifer comments. Naruko looks over the bound fox and gives a fanged smirk, "Nothing but eternal torment until I see fit," she sneers. Then flashback, next day Konoha Academy. Iruka sits at his desk as his students chatters, but his thoughts were on Naruko, having not seen the girl in a week. Mizuki was next to him and having similar thoughts, but of a darker hue. "Damn, I wish I'd gotten a piece of that demon," he thought. The class was filled clan heirs and heiresses of the great clans of Konoha, consisting of the Aburam, Nara, Akimichi, Yamanaka, Uchiha and Hyuga with several civilian children. Iruka starts to take roll, but the door opens as Naruko steps in. She is dressed in a black tank top and shorts that are mostly covered with a black front open apron skirt to her ankles, all of them having gold trimmings. White thigh-high stocking, black gloves on her fingers that have no knuckles but buckle at the wrist and black knee-high lace-up boots with her white trench coat. "You're late, Naruko," Iruka chides, shaking off his shock. Naruko rubs her head sheepishly. "Sorry, Iruka-sensei," she says, going to take her seat. Naruko's blue eyes meet Kiba and Sasuke as the former freezes as Naruko takes her seat. Sasuke could care less about Naruko as she was clanless orphan and should be proud that he used her body. On the other hand, Kiba was nervous. "Damn it, those guys said she was dead or ran away," he thought. Naruko took her seat near the window and gaze drifts to Hinata. The shy girl wears a loose-fitting, lavender and cream-headed jacket with lavender cuffs over mesh armor. She also wears navy blue pants and black low-heeled sandals. "Soon, Hinata, you will be mine," Naruko thought. Mizuki starts to hand out the tests but gave Naruko a disguise test. "Greed, lust and pride," she thought, looking at the test and almost laughing. Naruko answers the disguise test meant for an Anbu with ease. "Sorry, Mizuki, but try harder," she thought, waiting for the rest to finish. A half hour later the class was brought to the training field for practical test of weapons. Naruko watches everyone go as Sasuke got the highest with 9 out of 10 in the male bracket. Sakura and Ino scored 6 and 5 out of 10, while Hinata got 8 out of 10. "Naruko, it is your turn," Mizuki says. Naruko steps up to the table and picks up her shuriken and kunai, weighted and dull foolish, she thought. Naruko holds 3 kunai in hands and sent them into the bullseye, followed by 10 shuriken and her remaining kunai for a perfect 10 out of 10. "How did Narubaka do that?" Sakura shouts. Naruko turns to the pink-hair girl. "I had an eye-opening day last week and I got tired of holding back," she says, with a flap of her coat. Naruko spares a glance to Kiba and he flinches slightly as they head back inside for the last part of the test. One by one each went into the room and either came out with a hit I8 or none with a saddened expression. Naruko finally has her turn and heads inside as Iruka and Mizuki sit. "Okay, Naruko, you must perform a henge kawarimi and create 3 bunshin," Iruka says. "No way that demon can do this," Mizuki thought. Naruko starts with perfect henge of Iruka and substitutes with a chair. "Bunshin no jutsu," she calmly says, creating 3 perfect clone. Mizuki's jaw nearly hit the floor and no, how is this possible? He thought as his plan to use her to steal the forbidden scroll went down in flames. Naruko took her hit I8 and secures it around her neck. "Those seals work marvelously," she thought, releasing them. About 4 hours later everyone came back as Iruka came with the results of their exams. "Alright for Rookie of the Year Sasuke Uchiha," Iruka says, and the fangirls squeal. "Inoichi of the Year goes to Naruko Uzumaki," Iruka adds, shocking all of them. Sakura bolted up in her seat. "How could Narubaka be Kunoichi of the Year?" she shouts. Naruko got a perfect score on her written test weapons test and passed the jutsu portion, Iruka explains. Sakura glares at Naruko but sits down as Iruka clears his throat. "Alright, now I'll go over your team assignments," Iruka says and lists the first 6 teams. Team 7 will be Sasuke Uchiha Sakura Haruno and Kiba Inyazuka. Team 8 will be Hinata Hyuga Shino Aburam and Naruko Uzumaki. Team 9 is still active and Team 10 will be Shikamaru Nara Ino Yamanaka and Choji Akimichi. "Please return tomorrow at noon to meet your sensei," Iruka explains. Sakura squeals loudly at being on Sasuke's team and Ino groans at being on her team. Hinata smiled softly as she glances to Naruko. "Finally I can be around Naruko-chan without my clan interfering," she thought. Everyone starts to file out as Iruka congratulates everyone. "I wish you all luck," he says. Naruko reaches the outside and she could hear whispers from a few people. The demon passed. I can't believe Hokage-sama let that demon to be a Kunoichi shh. Don't say that out loud, she heard. However, a smile forms on her face as Mitsuomi stood at the gate with a bouquet of blue roses in his hand. Mitsuomi was wearing black jeans with a silver-studded belt, a wallet chain and a pair of black cowboy boots. A grey long-sleeve shirt that clung to his body and of all things a cross around his neck, 3 bracelets on each arm and black gloves. Only a formality, Mitsuomi says, holding out the flowers. Naruko takes the flowers and kisses his inviting lips, very much, she says, taking his arm as they stroll off. Who the hell was that guy with Nirobaka? Sakura snaps. Ino watches the retreating pair. I don't know, but daddy said he came back with Naruko after she was gone for a week, she comments. Quite auspicious with that cross, dear, Naruko comments, sniffing the roses. Mitsuomi touches the cross with a look and a smirk. Whatever do you mean, dear? Mitsuomi Kiryu is quite religious, he says, but glances slightly. Your mouse is following us, and her jealousy and envy is rising, he adds. We're on the same team and her pillar is with a strange man, Naruko muses. Hinata fiddles with her sleeve as she follows Naruko. Who is he, and why did he kiss Naruko-chan, she thought, but eeps, as she nearly bumps into Naruko. Hinata, why are you following me? Naruko asks. Hinata blushes brightly and pokes her fingers. I wanted to know why you kissed him, she says. Naruko glances to Mitsuomi, but he pokes her forehead. I need to go see the Hokage about our thing, he says, and excuses himself. Naruko beckons for Hinata to follow her as they head for the Golden Leaf. His name is Mitsuomi, and I met him during my week away, she starts, as they reach the hotel. You're staying here, Hinata asks. Naruko nods as they reach the penthouse. I'll explain inside, she says. Naruko quickly makes a few stealthy signs to erect a barrier to allow them to speak freely. Take a seat, she says, slipping off her coat. Hinata, do you know why I went missing for a week? Naruko says, pulling her chair in front of Hinata. Hinata slowly nods as her lavender eyes met Naruko's blue orbs. You probably heard I went to train for the Genin exams and met Mitsuomi, she says, but her eyes harden. However, that was a lie, and I'll show you why, she adds and touches Hinata's temples. Nightmare teller, Naruko says, and her soulless black eyes form. Hinata's eyes widen at seeing Naruko's assault by the villagers. Her eyes start leaking tears and slowly slips into fury as she sees Sasuke and Kiba's part in this humiliation. Naruko releases Nightmare Teller and Hinata runs to a trash can to vomit. Those fucking bastards, Hinata shouts, in anger. Naruko giggles in her hand but clears her throat. It was because to them I met Mitsuomi, or as he commonly known as Lucifer, she states. Hinata turns with a shocked look on her face. Lucifer, she says. Yes, Lucifer is Mitsuomi and my husband, Naruko says and removes her glove to show her ring. Hinata staggers to the bed and sits down as Naruko starts to explain her time in hell and her status as queen. Hinata could barely contain the emotions running through her mind, but Naruko confirmed her story as she reveals her tails, fox ears and demon horns. I am the queen of hell and wife of Lucifer. He gave me the power to bring about my revenge on those who harmed me and continue to send sinners to hell. However, I have more important mission, but I talk about that later, Naruko explains. Naruko retracts her demon traits and kneels in front of Hinata and wipes her tears with her thumbs. Hinata, join me and become one of my 7 as my envy, she says. Envy, Hinata whispers, confused. Naruko slowly nods as she looks into Hinata's pupil-less lavender orbs. Yes, envy, Hinata. You are a very envious person. You're envious of those who hang out with their friends. Well, you cannot. You're envious of Neji, because he is prodigy of your clan. You're envious of Hanabi, as she treated better than you, even though she is younger, she explains. Hinata sniffles and closes her eyes to stifles her sob and touches Naruko's hands. You're right, why can't I be your friend? Why can't I be strong like Neji Nai-san or praised like Hanabi? I hate them, she says. Naruko smiles and pulls her away and rises to her full height. Would you join me, Hinata, she says, her arms open. Hinata clenches her pants as tears run down her cheeks, but she rises and opens her eyes. Yes, I will join you, she says, leaning in, and Naruko hugs her. Naruko releases her hug and smiles to caress Hinata's cheeks. Now then, I will make you powerful, she says, reaching for Hinata's zipper. How, Hinata says, as Naruko unzips her coat. Naruko slips off the coat and tosses it on the bed. Simple, I'm going to make you a demon, she says. Naruko pulls Hinata's mesh shirt and swiftly bites her shoulder, causing Hinata to cry out as Naruko's demonic energy enters her body. Naruko unlatches and Hinata falls on the bed and clutches the wound as black veins start to form and spread. Hinata whimpers and shifts into a fetal position as the black vein spreads and her chakra pulses. Naruko creates a demonic clone of Hinata to take her place for the night. Hinata's ears slowly become pointed, her hair lengthens to her rear and gains a greenish tint with 2 small black horns starting to emerge from her hair. Naruko takes a seat in her recliner at Hinata slowly becomes her envy. Konoha Council Room. Mitsuomi sits before the Konoha Council to discuss several things, while Naruko turned Hinata to the dark side. The Konoha Council was made up the great clans of Konoha and wealthy merchants. The Aburam, Nara, Akamichi, Yamanaka, Ichiha, Hyuga, Kurama, Uzumaki, Sarutobi and Senju. Mitsuomi presented the marriage contract for him and Naruto and his citizenship in various countries. Mitsuomi used his silver tongue to weave a tale of his rise, as his father created the company in Snow Country and helped overthrow corrupt ruler Dodo Kazuhana and placed the true ruler Koyuki Kazuhana upon the throne. Many on the council thought that this gave them a chance to garner Snow's technology and rumored chakra armors. Mitsuomi spun a convincing tale that he was a trained samurai and had some shinobi training. However, the biggest thing was Mitsuomi owned 2 mines in Earth Country, 3 hydroelectric plants in Lightning, a shipping company in water and constructed several windmills that supplied electricity in wind. Mitsuomi could smell the swelling sin at his words. Greed from most and lust from Tsumin Yuzuka and several women on the civilian council. Mitsuomi told them he wanted to invest in Konoha as his soon-to-be wife was born here, having already purchased Ichiraku Ramen and owning 3 casinos and a shipping company in Fire Country. Sarutobi was looking at the contract with a hidden giddy. This foolish boy has given us everything. If he were to die, all his holdings would go to his wife, and with Naruto being our loyal weapon, would turn everything over to us, he thought. Danzo glances to Sarutobi but back to Mitsuomi. How skilled are you, he asks. Well sir, I am an accomplished swordsman, but unfortunately my body cannot handle extended battles. My body temperature would rise and cause my body to burn from the inside, Mitsuomi explains. Some on the council showed concern, but Danzo only scoffs. Then your wealth is all you can bring to Konoha, he says. Mitsuomi almost couldn't hide the smirk on his face. Yes sir, but if I may sir, he says and removes his glove. Can I have someone shake my hand, he says. Many on the council furrow their brow, but Hamura obliges and gasps. Kami, your skin is very hot, he says, pulling his hand back. Mitsuomi slips back on his glove. I was born with it. If my temperature rises too high I can scald skin, he explains. Several on the council including Danzo thought this could be a Kekai Genkai and made notes to delay his death until they collected enough of his genetic material. Kiryu-san, how did you meet the dem? Naruko-chan, Sachiko Haruno asks, hiding her slip. Sachiko has strawberry blonde hair and wears a light pink kipao dress that showed of her creamy legs and a well-developed bust. Mitsuomi blushes and scratches the back of his head. Well ma'am, it was love at first, you could say, and quite literally ran into each other. She told me her entire story and her goal to be Hokage. The more she talked the more I fell for her. I proposed before she left to return and she said yes, he explains. Sachiko was a bit worried about what Naruto said but brushed it off. That's quite romantic, but wouldn't you be more inclined to have a woman than a girl, she says, perking up her cleavage. Well Ms. Haruno, I believe a person's eyes can tell a lot about a person. Naruko's eyes show loneliness, but I hope to cure her loneliness, Mitsuomi explains, ignoring her obvious flirting. Sarutobi stamped the document to approve the marriage. Well Mitsuomi-san, congratulations on this and welcome to Konoha, he says. Mitsuomi smiles softly and nods. Thank you Lord Hokage, and if I'm not being too forward, I would like to purchase a compound and a place for Naruko to continue her training, he asks. Mitsuomi reaches in his pocket for a picture. I saw this one and wondered if it was for sale, he asks, showing the picture. Sarutobi's breath hitched seeing the photo. Oh yes, this property has been in Konoha's care for a few years. Now I'm sure you would like a better property than this, he says. Mitsuomi notices the looks from the council. Is something wrong with the property, he asks, innocently. No Kiryu-san, but the property is quite expensive, Hamura states. That is no problem with that, Mr. Hamura. I'm even willing to pay double the asking price, Mitsuomi says, and several on civilian side freeze. Sarutobi gulps slightly but nods. Of course Kiryu-san, I'll have the bank get the deed ready for you, he says, and Danzo gives a slight glare. Mitsuomi rises from his seat to shake Sarutobi's hand. Thanks so much Hokage-sama, esteemed council members. I'll have the full amount tomorrow, he says, and excuse himself. Once Mitsuomi left and the council's dismissed, Danzo slams his fist on the table. Here is in, have you lost your mind? The compound belongs to the Yondaime. If the demon finds anything to link them to her, he says. They won't. Jiraiya has everything of note sealed and Naruto doesn't know that anything about sealing that boy is worth millions if not more, so I'll risk that for the riches Konoha can garner from him once he's dead, and Naruto signs everything over to us, he explains. How long before can we have the boy befall an accident and the demon as his wife inherit everything, Kaharu asks. Danzo grips his cane with a sigh. At most a year to not garner suspicion, but I would like to have boy as a weapon. That demonstration with Hamura could be a bloodline, he says. I agree with Danzo. I propose in a year the boy suffers an accident and we hand him over to Danzo with a faux body to bury, Sarutobi states, and the three nod. Hinata starts to stir and her eyes shoot open. Finally awake, I see, a voice comments. Hinata slowly sits up and rubs her head but felt her new appendages. I think they are cute, the voice says. Hinata looks and sees Mitsuomi sitting near the window, but his upper half was shrouded in darkness. Lucifer, she questions. Mitsuomi light a cigarette to slightly illuminate his face. "Please call me Mitsuomi," he says. Hinata looks around and doesn't see Naruko. "She went to get you some food," Mitsuomi comments, blowing a stream smoke. Hinata gets off the bed and finds the floor-length mirror, and her eyes widen, seeing her new features, but what was shocking were black veins that adorned the left side of her face. The black veins originate where Naruko had bitten her, and the white of her left eye was black as night, and the lavender pupil was glowing. Hinata the envious, Mitsuomi muses, and Hinata turns to him. I feel stronger," Hinata says. Mitsuomi chuckles with a deep drag, "As present I'd say near A-class ninja," Mitsuomi says, and Hinata's eyes widen. "However you can surpass that with a little time down below," Mitsuomi adds. The door opens as Naruko steps with several bags, and she sees Hinata. "Hinata, you're awake, and the change was a success," she says, closing the door. Hinata blushes as she takes a box of cinnamon buns. "It feels weird," she says, touching her horn. "I know how you feel, I felt the same when I got mine," Naruko says, slipping off her coat. Naruko took a seat with her ramen as Hinata ate her cinnamon buns. "Should we go below until tomorrow?" she says. Hinata looks up and furrows her brow. "I have to go home," she says, but Naruko shakes her head. "Nope, I sent a clone in your place and will act like you until you switch with her," Naruko explains. "Do I have to go home?" Hinata asks. Naruko looks up with a tilt of head. "Not really, the clone will last, as long as I will it too, and act exactly like you were your old self anyway," she says. Hinata sighs in relief and glances to Mitsuomi. "What is Naruko-chan's mission?" she asks. "Not much, so discord among the masses assemble her 7, but her main mission is to recover the 9 Biju," Mitsuomi explains and crosses his legs. Originally the 9 were the guardians of the 9 circles, but ultimately they all abandoned their post to return to this realm and became the weapons they are today. However, no one escapes hell as I am wholeheartedly weakened while I am here. Naruko fell into my lap," Mitsuomi adds. "I was Kami's chosen child to be the savior of the world, but her sheep treated me as I was Mitsuomi. I cursed Kami, and I am now queen of the fallen, queen of despair, and the one to drag those who run from hell with hell at my back," Naruko finishes. Mitsuomi rises from his seat and slicks back his hair. "Come, we'll be back tomorrow," he says. Naruko grabs her coat and creates 2 clones for her and Mitsuomi. "Take his hand, Hinata," she says, taking Mitsuomi's right hand. Hinata complies and takes his left, and they vanish in a ring of flames. Hinata opens her eyes and finds herself in front what appeared to be a large iron door and adorned in skulls. "Where are we?" she asks. "City of Disentrance to the Circle," Hersey Lucifer says, pushing open the doors. Hinata saw a huge throne room with 2 thrones at the end of a red carpet, but 4 people stood at attention. The first was a short yet muscular young man with spiky black hair. His attire is a bodysuit, crimson in color, and has a white insignia on several places. The suit is open collar and exposes his chest. He has silver gauntlets and carries his sword with a strap on his hip. The second was a formless black mass with numerous skulls upon it. The third is a tall woman with long white hair and a bun, deathly pale skin, with jet black sclera in her eyes, and glowing crimson irises. She wears a very long, short-sleeved black robe that obscures her feet, with its distinctive feature being a curved high collar with dark red trim, bordering the outer edge of a narrow window, exposing her bust in a vertical ellipsis resembling an eye, and completed with a long shawl emblazoned with 3 interconnected, maroon-colored vertical elliptic sigils resembling a trio of overseeing eyes above a series of maroon-colored diamond emblems. The last is a toned woman with long spiky orange hair. She wears no clothes, instead covering her left arm, privates and right leg in bandages. "As Naruko will have her 7, I have my stake," Zeldris, Grerod, Salem and Diriari, Lucifer says, pointing to each in order. The 4 boas Lucifer and Naruko take their seats upon their thrones, and Hinata stands next to Naruko. "Interesting, who is she?" Salem asks. Naruko smiles warmly at Hinata. "One of my 7, Hinata the envious," she says. "Then she is one of our counterparts then?" Zeldris asks. Lucifer crosses his legs with a nod, but glances to Hinata. "Yes, but unlike Naruko's 7, my stakes are intertwined with all the other sins," he says. "Intertwined?" Hinata asks, and Grerod floats closer. "You represent the sin of envy, but we stakes encompasses them all, except for pride as it is Lord Lucifer," Grerod states in tandem with its heads. "Not entirely true, Grerod, one of you can be pride, but I am the most prideful," Lucifer states and shifts slightly. "Zeldris and Diriari, I want you to train Hinata until we return," he says, and both nod. Zeldris and Diriari lead Hinata below to the circle of violence. "What skills do you possess?" he asks. "I possess the Byakugan that allows me see chakra and a 360-degree view of my surroundings, and I am proficient in my clan's Taijutsu, the gentle fist, that can close every Tenketsu point in the body," Hinata explains. Zeldris rubs his chin in thought. "With your new strength, you probably destroy the body from within. We'll work that and discover your other abilities," he says, and Hinata nods. Meanwhile, Naruko stands over a reflecting pool, and with a wave of her hand and the village of Konoha came into view. "Now where are you?" Naruko mutters, focusing. A sinister smirk forms on her face as her target comes into view. "There you are, Mizuki," she says. Mizuki has the forbidden scroll in his possession and being chased by Anbu. Naruto focuses her unholy power on the former teacher, increasing his pride and lust. Mizuki suddenly turns and shoots toward the only female Anbu with the intention of harm. However, the Anbu drives her tanto through his chest and kills Mizuki. Naruto titters darkly as Lucifer wraps his arms around her. "Naughty fox," he muses, nibbling her neck. "I'm going to meet him," Naruto muses, vanishing into flames. Lucifer returns to his throne with an amused laugh. "She will so many red delights for him and all who have wronged her," he muses. Fourth circle. Greed. Mizuki opens his eyes with a start and quickly pats his chest. "Shit, I thought that Anbu killed me," he says, but looks around. Mizuki was no longer in the forest but looks around and sees gold coins for miles. "Oh, I've struck the jackpot," he shouts, grabbing coins. Unknown to the newest order, Naruto lands behind him with a retract of her black wings. "Here too I saw a nation of lost souls, far more than were above. They strained their chests against enormous weights, and with mad howls, rolled them at one another. Then in haste, they rolled them back. Why do you hoard? Why do you waste?" she declares. Mizuki halts and turns to see Naruto. "Demon, what are you doing here?" he shouts, trying to hide his coins. Naruto lets her demonic features emerge. "Oh yes, the old adage that I am a demon. Well, now I am Mizuki, thanks to my deal with the devil," she sneers. Mizuki sneers right back Naruto, but he starts to feel a burning. Looking down, he saw the gold was actually melting. "Hhhhhh," Mizuki cries out. Mizuki struggles to get up as melting gold was dragging him into the scalding pool. "Kami, help me," he shouts. Naruto covers her mouth with a rumbling laugh. "Kami can't and won't save you, Mizuki. You are in hell's fourth circle, doomed to burn in this molten gold over and over and over and over for all time," she howls, cackling. Konoha Academy. A ring of flames erupts on the roof of the academy as Naruto with Hinata and Mitsuomi appear. "How are we not sensed?" Hinata asks, looking around. Hinata was now wearing a mesh sports bra that exposes her belly and her lavender coat, but both sleeves rolled up to her elbow, and the word envy on the back. A pair of black booty jean shorts with light blue and dark blue striped stockings and matching arm warmers, with black strapped steel-toed boots and her kunai holster on her left thigh. Naruto looks down from the roof at her two clones. "I had my clone come back last night to play several seals," she explains. Mitsuomi picks up his sliver briefcase. "I'll go meet the fool and have some clones. We'll head to the compound. They'll remove the seals and replace them with our own," he says. Naruto and Hinata each give him a kiss on the cheek and he vanishes in a swirl of flames. A crackle of white lightning washes over Hinata as she shifts into her old self as the pair swap with their clones and head for the classroom. Naruto enters first and takes her seat as a few minutes later Hinata enters as not arouse suspicion. Naruto notices Kiba was stealing nervous glances to her. "Excellent, that dog is starting to experience the nightmare," she thought. Noon soon approaches as the door opens and the Jonin sensei arrive, with the first being Asuma Sarutobi. "Team 10 with me," he says, blowing a stream of smoke. Asuma wears the standard Jonin uniform of a flak jacket, dark blue pants, and a long-sleeve shirt, but the sleeves rolled up halfway. He also wears a sash that has the kanji for fire marked on it around his waist, a pair of black bangles and bandages wrapped around the arms of his sleeves. Shikamaru, Choji and Ino follow Asuma out, but the blonde blows a kiss at Sasuke. The other Jonin for the 6 civilian teams picked up their students and left Team 7 and 8 to wait. The door opens as a beautiful woman with wavy and long black hair, ruby eyes and purple eyes shadow steps in. "I'm Kurenai Yuhi, teammate with me," Kurenai states. Kurenai wears a unique outfit consisting of a red mesh armor blouse with only the right sleeve visible. Overall, this is very broad material which resembles bandages with a pattern on it, similar to those of rose thorns. Her hands and upper thighs are also wrapped in bandages and she wears her hit I-8 on her forehead and regular shinobi sandals. Hinata, Naruto and Shino follow Kurenai out and she leads to a training ground 8. "You for you reek of pride, Kurenai," Naruto thought. They each took a seat on some wood stumps as Kurenai clears her throat. "Alright, now let us introduce ourselves. I am Kurenai Yuhi, Jinjutsu Mistress of Konoha, and I hope to turn you into respectable shinobi in Kinmoichi," she explains. "I am Shino Abura. My goal is succeed my father and discover new insects for my hive," Shino states. "I'm Hinata Hyuga. My goal is unite my family under one banner," Hinata says, shyly, and Naruto hides her smirk. "I'm Naruto Uzumaki, and my goal is to be the first female Hokage," Naruto says. "Excellent goals. Now we'll begin the true Genin exam," Kurenai says, but Naruto raises her hand. "We know the true meaning of the test, and it is teamwork," Naruto states. Kurenai blinks a few times but softly smiles. "Yes, and since you know you all pass tomorrow, we'll begin our first mission, so meet here at 8 am," she says, and vanishes into rose petals. Shino excuses himself and leaves the pair alone. "Kurenai sensei exudes pride," Hinata notes. I agree, pride in Genjutsu, pride as a kunoichi, but her pride borders on arrogance. I look forward to corrupting her, Naruto says as they head to the compound, but the blonde senses someone watching. From the trees a pair pupil-less brown eyes were watching, and the owner of these eyes were Anko Mitarashi. She wears a fitted mesh bodysuit that covers her from her neck down to her thighs. Over this is a tan overcoat with a purple inseam and a pocket on each side, a dark orange miniskirt, a dark blue belt, and pale gray shin guards. In addition to the typical hit I-8, she wears a small pendant that looks like a snake fang and a wristwatch. The snake mistress, as she dubbed herself, was frowned upon by many in Konoha for her connection to a certain snake. However, she heard something that made her blood boil and her soul cry out in anger, having heard rumors that Naruto Uzumaki, the supposed demon, had been assaulted by several villagers, but most notably the younger brother of one of her close friends. Anko couldn't confirm or deny without proof on the matter, as Naruto had vanished for 6 days and the villagers who said it were drunk. Anko drops down from tree and begins to follow, unaware that she no longer would be human after this day. Naruto arrives at her family's compound as Hinata had shifted into a snake around her neck and her clone heads to the Hyuga estates for the night. The gate has a note upon it and she recognized Mitsuomi's handwriting. The seals are in place and the old one destroyed. Have those you wish to enter coded and I have returned to dis for a matter, Naruto quietly reads. Naruto touches the gate and it opens, but she stops and smiles. Come out, crazy snake lady, she shouts. Anko drops down with a shocked expression. How do you know I was following you, she says. Naruto gives Anko a cheeky grin. I didn't, she says, and Anko frowns but follows her. The compound was a quarter the size of the Hyuga compound, with a modest 2-story home and training ground in back. Aki, this the Yondame's home, how the hell did you get in here? It was guarded with seals, Anko half shouts. The snake around Naruto's neck shifts back into Hinata. All will be explained inside, Anko Senshi says, staring at the shocked Takubetsu Jonin. Naruto reaches the house and a silver case was waiting. Opening the case, it contained the keys, deed and some money. Naruto opens the door and all three enter, but the blonde frowns as most if not all family effects were gone. Take a seat and I'll explain everything, Naruto says and create several clones to clean up. Naruto took a seat on the sofa as Hinata took a seat next to her and Anko takes a recliner. I'll start with your question. I now own this house, but I should have inherited this house as I am the daughter of the Yondame Hokage Minato Namikaze and his wife Kushina Uzumaki, Naruto says. Anko's brown eyes slowly widen. Why was it hidden, she asks. Fear of losing their weapon. Konoha only sees me as weapon instead of their precious Yondame's only child, and this fear led to my rape last week, Naruto replies. Anko lowers her gaze and clenches her fist. So it's true, those fucking bastards, she whispers. Yes, 1 week ago I was attacked by several civilians and a few shinobi led by Sachiko Haruno. After I was laid low by them, Sasuke Uchiha took my virginity, followed by a few of the men, and Kiba and Yazuka. As I laid there, I asked why would Kami allow this to happen to me? I was faithful. But what did I get? Nothing but pain. After they had their way I was left to die, but I was saved by someone who answered my cries and he became my husband, Naruto explains and reveals her ring. Aki, you married some guy after being raped. He could be one of them, Anko says, but Naruto raises her hand. He was not one of them, he is the fallen one, the true king of despair, Lucifer, Naruto counters. Anko stares incredulously at the blonde, but her eyes widen as Naruto reveals her demonic features followed by Hinata. What are you? What have you become? Anko sputters. I have become a demon, as the villagers always called me, Naruto says and glances to Hinata. Hinata is also a demon, my envy, she adds, stroking Hinata's cheek. Anko rubs her eyes and rises from her seat with a shake of her head. Does the Hokage know, she asks. No, because like the council, Sarutobi only sees me as a weapon and had seals put on me to make me simple-minded and docile. Should the need arise, I was to never know my parents, but once I turned 18 I would sign over their wealth and knowledge to them, Naruto says. Anko slowly sits back down but looks Naruto in the eye. Why are you telling all this? Do you plan to kill me? She says, her eyes serious. I have no intention of killing you, Anko, far from it. I want you to join me like Hinata, Naruto says. Anko's breath hitches as Naruto rises from her seat. You have protected me when you could. I don't want to see you done in by Konoha, she says. Anko gulps, staring into Naruto's blue orbs. Look, Aki, this a lot to take in. You're saying you are the wife of the devil and the Sandame has orchestrated all sorts of shit and you want me to betray them, she says. Konoha doesn't care about you, me, any of us. How long before they send you on a suicide mission or that curse mark kills you or somebody decides to take advantage of you like they did me, Naruto says, pulling Anko to her feet. Anko's eyes flicker as Naruto seemed to peer into very soul. Why me? How can you talk like you're older than me, she says. During the week I was gone I spent a lifetime in hell, Naruto states, and Anko looks away slightly. Why did you choose this? Anko says, looking at Hinata. The lavender eye beauty looks Anko in the eye. I love Naruto-chan. She became the pillar to keep from killing myself. As the years pass, Naruto can give you back the freedom Konoha and Orochimaru have taken from you, Hinata says. Anko sighs deeply, but a slight smirk forms. Alright, but you better make a strong demon, she says. Naruto smiles softly and grasps Anko's shoulder to pull her closer before biting deeply into her neck. Anko winces but cries out as Naruto pumps her demonic power into her form, and the blonde catches her before she collapses back. Welcome Anko, the lascivious Naruto says, holding Anko bridal style as the black vein sprout and whimpers escapes her lips. Hinata follows Naruto upstairs. What sin does Anko-san represent, she asks, opening the door of the guest bedroom. Naruto places Anko on the bed as she trembles, lust she coos, touching Anko's cheek as they leave her to rebirth. Anko was laying on her side as her body spasms, her skin starts to turn a light pink, and her hair slowly turns snow white, while horns start to emerge and curl backwards and upward. Anko's backside starts to squirm, and a black tail emerges with a heart spade tip on the end. Anko's eyes shoot open, and the whites of her eyes were black, and her pupils were glowing brown. What the fuck happened to me, Anko whispers, but her eyes widen, seeing her pink skin and felt swishing. Anko jerks as she sees a black tail coming from her rear. What the hell? She says, finding a mirror but gasps seeing her horns and white hair. Anko pokes her head out the door, but her senses pick up Naruto and makes her way to the master bedroom. Hell. City of Dis. Lucifer rubs his face with a long sigh. How many times does make you know better? When I am not here, Zeldris is in charge, not you, he says. Standing before Lucifer were two of his daughters, one born from Lilith and the other from a fallen angel. The first looks about 15 with red hair tied with two looped pigtails and pink red eyes. She wore a long black corset-style dress with fluffy fabric blooming out from below. A few red seam lines on the corset part and a white chest piece fabric attached to the black lace choker. The second has short purple hair with two X-clips and blue-purple eyes with brown horns and a bat wings. She wears a purple cardigan and a long black skirt with heeled boots. I told you Satania that father would get upset, she says. It's alright Veen, I've come to expect this because she is like her mother, Lucifer says. Satania folds her arms with a huff. Why can't I rule hell in your absence? Mother Naruto would let me, she says. Lucifer was about to chide her, but he felt something that made him shoot up from his throne with a firm scowl. Satania and Veen flinch as both sense it too. Girls behind me, Lucifer says, heading towards the balcony. A golden light covers the balcony, and a figure appears in golden armor and a pair white wings. The figure steps out the light to reveal themselves as female with long white hair and glowing green eyes. Fufufu, what bring you to my realm, Azrael, Lucifer states. Azrael glares at her former brother Lucifer. Stop hiding behind that human guise, she says. Lucifer cups his chin with a smirk and swivel of his head. Why, I like this face, it's the closest to my original face that Kami gave me, he says, veins bulging in his neck. However, smoke starts to leak from his eyes. Finally his face starts to catch fire and burning away his face until a charred skull with patches of burned skin remaining. Feel better, sister, now why are you here, Lucifer says, his voice distorted and deep. Azrael clenches the sword on her hip. Heaven knows what you have done. We will free the child of prophecy from your grasp, she says. Ha 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 ha, if that's the case, why didn't Michael or Gabriel come, or even Uriel and Raphael, Lucifer says, but tilts his head and his sockets widen. Unless none of them know you came here, he adds. It matters not, Lucifer, heaven will not allow to further corrupt her, Azrael shouts. Lucifer wags his finger at Azrael. Even if Kami does not sit upon her golden throne, he says, and Azrael freezes with wide eyes. You seem to forget I was Kami's most beloved archangel, her morning star, and I know secrets not even the great Michael knows, Lucifer sneers. Azrael draws her sword. How dare you besmirch Michael? She roars. How adorable, you believe Michael is the strongest archangel he is, that is if you don't count me, Lucifer says and folds his arms. However, if you feel yourself powerful, try your luck against me now or Naruto, but be warned, as she is nearly as strong as me and not restricted as I am on the surface, he says. Azrael was about to attack Lucifer, but the doors open as Zeldris, Gerardo, Salem and Diriari arrive. Your evil will not win, Lucifer, she shouts. Evil is an abstract created by her sheep to hide from their responsibility and own up to what choices they made. No, instead they create good and evil and lay evil at my feet. Why? Because they refuse to believe their sins are their choice. No, the devil made me do it. Eve chose to take the apple, humans chose to crucify him, humans chose to beat, torture and rape their supposed savior, her child of prophecy, yet when she cried out for help your kind chose to ignore her for what the fact she must be humble enough not beg, but to suffer and turn the other cheek, like he did. No human is like him. Lucifer shouts. Azrael flies away as Lucifer returns to normal with a scowl on his face. Should we go after her, Zeldris asks. No, Lucifer simply says and turns to his daughters. Sorry you had to be exposed to such holy light, he says, approaching them. Veen hugs him as he pats Satania on the head. Come, let's go torture Satania's mother in the ninth circle, Lucifer says, as they vanish into flames. Konoha Training Ground 8. Naruto was sitting cross-legged in meditation as Anko and Hinata were sparring, and the lavender-eye beauty was dodging a spiked whip. Naruto and Hinata sent demonic enforced clones for team missions, while Anko took the day off. Naruto has a barrier around the entire field, allowing both Hinata and Anko to use their full demon powers. Anko decides to change her outfit to a sleeveless purple and red short dress with black pantyhose, black arm sleeves with one purple and one red heeled boot, along with a black trench coat and a white fur collar sewn on. Bazette suddenly appears in front of Naruto with a folder. "Lady Naruto, I have recovered what you requested," she says. Naruto opens her eyes with a smile and takes the files, thumbing through each photo and bio on each person involved. "Want me to bring them into T&I?" Anko asks, but Naruto shakes her head. "No, I have something more devious planned." Sachiko Haruno owns quite a bit of things here in Konoha, so do a few in this file, but they seem to have acquired quite a bit of debt except for Sachiko, but only because she sleeps with anyone for money, Naruto says and picks several files. "Zed, I want you find out the debts of these people, then inform Mitsuomi I want him to purchase their debts and acquire their businesses," Naruto states and hands the files to her. "As you command," Bazette says, bowing and vanishing in swirl of flames. "Wouldn't doing that raise the ire of the civilian council and the elders?" Hinata asks, as Anko makes vine-shaped chairs. Anko chuckles softly as she takes a seat. "Think about it, if Mitsuomi owns these businesses, it can shrink their influence, and by extension Sachiko. Granted they will be upset, but the payday of Mitsuomi's wealth once they off him is more than enough to take this hit," she explains, crossing her legs. "Correct, but it goes deeper. If Mitsuomi somehow were to get on the civilian council, his charisma and charm would entice them to do whatever he asks Sarutobi, and those old fools will bend over backwards to placate him to get his money. Also, Mitsuomi is on very good terms with Lady Koyuki of Snow Country and the niece of the current fire daimyo. Once they learn that tidbit, they will want to give him everything to appease him, so once Sachiko and her cronies get uppity about Mitsuomi's purchases, he'll let it slip who he knows, and those sycophants will jump through his hoops like pets," Naruto explains, and the pair nod. "Or I can have a dummy company purchase the businesses, and since I am so wealthy they'll beg me to buy them back," a voice comments. The three turn as Mitsuomi was walking up with cigarette in his mouth and he saw Anko's demonic features. "So how strong are you, Mitsuomi-kun?" Anko asks. Mitsuomi takes a drag and blows smoke out his nose. "Not very in terms of power, at best I am Jonin strength, but my true power on this plane is my brain and silver tongue," he says, tapping his temple and mouth. "Did something happen in dis?" Naruto asks, but Mitsuomi sighs. "Satania again," she says. Anko and Hinata look between the pair. "Who's Satania?" Anko asks. "One of my daughters. Satania is my daughter with a fallen angel named Raphaela, and Veen is my daughter with Lilith, but she doesn't act like a typical succubus," Mitsuomi says, but a scowl forms on his face. "However, heaven decided to ruin my day," he adds. "Heaven?" Anko asks. Mitsuomi lights another cigarette with a small drag. "The Archangel Azrael decided to pay me a visit and spew heaven's rhetoric about how they will stop me from corrupting Naruto any further," he states. "Archangels?" Hinata asks and Mitsuomi pats his chest. "Once I was the Archangel dubbed the Morning Star by Kami herself," Mitsuomi says but pauses. "Long ago it was just we angels and Kami, but then humanity was created. Our kind was designed to serve and bow and worship, but humans were granted choice. Humans can choose to acknowledge her or don't," Mitsuomi states, but all see the smoke coming from his eyes and his skin darkening. "Then what did humans do with her gifts? Paradise thrown aside by choice, this world destroyed by choice, yet she favors them above all her creations. Kami wanted her angels to bow to these flawed creatures, but I refused. My pride would not allow me to do this, so I rebelled and was cast out of her divine light," Mitsuomi states, his face burned away, and all their eyes were wide. "This is the price I paid for challenging the throne," Mitsuomi adds. Mitsuomi sparks up a third cigarette as smoke billows out of the charred skull. "So be careful, lower level angels can use their full powers, but the likes of Michael cannot, but knowing Michael, he won't come himself," he states. Naruto gets to her feet as she starts Iryo Jutsu on his face, but he catches her hand. "Give it a minute and it heal on its own," he says, his face healing. "Now then, let's go home and I'll cook you some food and show Anko what she will looks like pregnant," Mitsuomi says, and the four vanish as teammate arrives. 2 months later, life for teammate was boring at best as they were subjected to D ranks, or the clones of Hinata and Naruto were. Kurenai was a good sensei, but as a kunoichi she was lacking in several areas. Naruto notices Kurenai prided herself on her Jinjutsu ability, but her Taijutsu and Ninjutsu were average. Naruto also noticed that Kurenai seemed to coddle and mother her team, but especially Hinata, from being her guardian at one time. Naruto made it her mission to whip Kurenai into shape once she joined the Seven. Naruto also made headway with her seven with Shikamaru, now dubbed Shikamaru the Indolent. Shikamaru had came to her after a joint training session with him, and he deduced Naruto was hiding something. Naruto told him everything about happened and what she planned, and he begrudgingly agreed to become her sloth. Naruto bestowed him with the power to control shadows, able to absorb light and a sense of omnipresence, allowing him to control others similar to his Kajimane. Shikamaru often went to hell to test his mind against the great minds there and listen their knowledge, allowing him to effectively be the brains of the seven. Mitsuomi had also gone through with Naruto's plan and created the dummy companies to purchase the various debts and shrink the civilian council's influence. Publicly, however, Mitsuomi purchased the Golden Leaf Hotel and an adjacent restaurant to settle himself in Konoha, endearing himself to the people after their marriage came to light. Many called him a demon lover, but seeing his money that soon died down and even allowed Naruto to enter their stores with fake smiles on their faces. Life for Hinata, or rather her clone saw said clone gaining the cage bird seal after failing to defeat Niji in spar. This allowed the real Hinata to ask to be disowned by the clan and allowed her to move in with Naruto, which Hiashi and the elders agreed. When Mitsuomi even decided to compensate Hiashi for it. Hinata cried and packed up her things as her cousin and sister sneered at her, but the demon of envy was practically giddy to be free of clan. Hinata celebrated with an all-night four-way with Naruto, Anko and Mitsuomi. Anko herself had moved out of her dingy apartment and moved to the Naruto's former apartment complex, which Mitsuomi has purchased and renovated, allowing her to make the whole top floor into her apartment. Anko also spent numerous days in hell and learning from the Succubi, learning futant-based skills, and creating flowery tentacles that secrete acid, even learning that her body could emit pheromones that made her job and T&I easier. Konoha Mission Hall. Teammate were currently making their way to the mission hall for their first C-rank mission, but they could hear the shrieking of a familiar pink howler. Sakura was screaming for Sasuke to have a higher mission as Iruka fires back with the classic not ready line. Sarutobi saw teammate enter, how about this Iruka a joint C-rank mission with teammate go and fetch Tazuna-san, he says. Naruto's eyes slightly narrow as Iruka returns with Tazuna and explains the mission. I see your game, old man, since I'll be gone for a month or more, that bitch Sachiko or some slut will try to seduce Mitsuomi. Nice try, but Mitsuomi is currently at home with our two guard dogs, she thought. An hour later the combined teams were leaving Konoha for Nami at a civilian's pace as Kakashi has his nose in his book at the rear, his team on the left flank. Kurenai took point and her team on the right flank with Tazuna in the middle as the journey to Nami took place. Naruto was walking with her hands behind back as the group nears a puddle in the middle of the dry road. At least have sense, Naruto thought and glances to Hinata with a slight nod. Hinata nears the puddle and subtly transforms the bottoms of her feet into spears and kills their would-be dispatchers. The group passes the puddle as it turns red and Naruto smirks softly. I hope the next one is better, and it seems Tazuna lied to us, but considering Mitsuomi knows about Gedo and is currently looking to buy the midget out, which will aid in his control of Mizu, she thought. Naruto notices that Kakashi suspected something but said nothing, as did Kurenai, but she ignored it. The group soon reaches the coast and a boat that will take them to Nami no Kuni. The Nohinamika's estate, Nami no Kuni. The group disembarks the boat as a thick mist was floating about. Be on guard everyone, Kakashi says. Suddenly Sasuke sends a kunai into a bush and out scampers a white rabbit. Sasuke-kun, Sakura whines. Kiba sniffs the air as Akamaru barks. Someone was there, he says. A loud noise makes itself known. Get down. Kakashi shouts. A huge blade passes over them as they hit the dirt and embeds itself in a tree. A tall man with black hair, dressed in camo cargos with sandals. His upper body was bare with a belt crossed over to hold his massive sword. A pair of mimetic wrist warmers extending up to his elbows and matching leg warmers with bandages covering the lower half of his mouth. Sharingan no Kakashi and the Genjutsu mistress of Konoha. No wonder the demon brother failed, the man sneers. Kurenai's ruby eyes narrow with a glance to Kakashi. What demon brother, Zabuza Mamachi, she shouts. Zabuza's eyes narrow in a perplexed fashion. They waiting for you on the road to here. Those fools, I'll kill them when I find them, he says, hopping down with his sword. Naruto and Hinata silently snort. Too bad they are dead already, both thought. Zabuza releases his kai, causing Kiba, Sakura and Sasuke to freeze up, and Sasuke going as far to point a kunai at his throat. Kakashi and Kurenai quickly release their kai to counter Zabuza. Sasuke, I won't let my team die, he says. Naruto almost wanted to roll her eyes as her team was around Tazuna. Hand over the old man and I won't have to kill you, Zabuza says, pointing his Kubikirabacho on his shoulder. Kakashi steps up and raises his hit I-8 to reveal his Sharingan, causing Zabuza to chuckle. Sharingan already, I am honored, Zabuza says, and raises a simple ram sign, Ninpo. Kurigakur no Jutsu, he says. The mist becomes even more thick. Sensei, the mist is laden with chakra, Hinata shouts, her Byakugan active. Oe Hyuga 2, maybe Kumo will pay a good price for you, Zabuza sneers, seemingly everywhere. Zabuza suddenly appears behind teammate with his Zanbato raised, and Hinata quickly hits him with her gentle fist, but Zabuza turns to water. Mizu Bunshin, Naruto thought. Zabuza starts to recite the 8 points he could strike, but Kakashi engages him in a fierce battle. However, Kakashi lost the moment he lands on the lake from a Spartan kick from Zabuza. Pathetic Suiton. Suro no Jutsu Zabuza shouts, encasing Kakashi in a water bubble. Kurenai take them and go Kakashi shouts. However Kurenai was too prideful and draws a kunai to join the fray. I am a jonin as well she shouts. Zabuza made 10 clones as Kurenai reaches the lake, but 8 got past her. Shino acts quickly with his Kakechu insects to take out 2. Hinata dispatches 2 as Naruko easily ends 2 as she rushes forward. Oh those brats seemed more skilled than yours Zabuza remarks. Itsuga Kiba shouts, behind Zabuza, but a wall water blocks him and another clone forms to engage him. Sasuke took out one of the clones as Sakura shakes in fear in front of Tazuna. Another clone was approaching her, but Naruko takes him out. Wake up, she shouts. Kurenai tries to cast a Jinjutsu, but the 2 clones gave no quarter and made her average Taijutsu look worse, but her pride would not let her quit. Naruko races onto the lake towards Zabuza, but activates her ultimate eye and draws a kunai. You wanna try little girl Zabuza sneers but his breath hitches, seeing Naruko's blue orbs. This moment of distraction allows Hinata to shunshin behind Zabuza and forcing him to release his hold in Kakashi. What the hell was that? He thought, back jumping. Naruko and Hinata stood side by side as Kakashi engages Zabuza once more and ending with Zabuza slamming into a tree. The hunter Nin soon steps in to take Zabuza away before Kakashi could make the kill. Pathetic Naruko thought as Kakashi collapses. Kurenai was no better with a few cuts. Tazuna-san where is your home she asks. Kiba carried Kakashi as the others guarded them, making their way to Tazuna's house. Once there met Tazuna's daughter Tsunami and her son Inari. The boy promptly called them fools and that we're going to die. Nightfall, Naruko and Hinata stood outside the house as everyone have bedded down for night. Should we go find Gato and kill him Hinata asks. No Mitsuomi has plans for him besides Shika has an eye on him Naruko muses. The shadows of a tree darken and an eye opens. Mendaki say that midget is sickening Shikamaru notes, his voice disembodied. Hinata senses someone and turns to the trees, come out or die she shouts. Shino steps out the darkness, I meant no harm, but that voice was Shikamaru he questions, but Naruko activates her Mangekyo Sharingan, causing Shino to walk off. What did you do Shikamaru asks and Naruko smirks. Seems the Sharingan has plenty of cheats and this is called Kodomatsukami and it will rewrite memories apparently this was what Fugaku team was going to use on me Naruko explains as Shikamaru mutters Mendakise and recedes into the shadows. When will we go after Kurenai Hinata asks and Naruko looks at the night sky. Soon Naruko muses as they head in for the night. However both pretend to not notice their sensei was also watching from the shadows. Kurenai steps from the darkness with a serious look on her face. What is Naruko hiding? I'll need to inform Hokage-sama of this she says, walking back to the house. However thorny vines erupt from the ground to ensnare Kurenai. What is this? She shouts. Calm down Nai-chan Anko says, appearing over her shoulder. Kurenai's ruby eyes widen. Anko how are you here? She asks. Anko giggles as she steps in front of Kurenai. I couldn't be too far from my mistress. Now can I she says, her coat flapping in the wind. Mistress why you mean Naruko? Kurenai says, struggling in the vines. Anko folds her arms with a nod. Yep Naruko has changed and because of her I changed too she says, revealing her demonic features. Kurenai's eyes widen in shock as Anko's tail swishes behind her light pink skin and white hair with glowing eyes. What are you? You're not Anko Kurenai shouts, but Anko giggles into her sleeve. I am Anko Mitarashi Takubetsu Jonin and Snake Mistress of Konoha. You were the first person to accept me after that bastard Orochimaru marked me and abandoned me Anko states. Kurenai shook her head in disbelief. Anko W what have you done she says. I freed myself from the shackles Orochimaru and Konoha have put on me. I am now Anko the lascivious one of Naruko Uzumaki 7 Anko declares. 7 what Kurenai says but Anko leans closer. 7 sins Anko purrs. Kurenai glares at Anko, sins that makes no sense is the Kyuubi responsible for this, has it taken over Naruko she says. Anko rubs her chin for a moment, nope the Kyuubi is getting its just desserts in the 9th circle, why don't you join us Nai-chan she says. Us? Kurenai snaps and Anko smiles. Yeah I was watching your fight with Zabuza and without your Jinjutsu you're lacking and don't glare at me Anko says, seeing the glare. Your pride in Jinjutsu can and will be your undoing Anko adds. Kurenai looks away slightly, you're wrong I can defeat anyone with the right Jinjutsu she says. Really what about Yakumo that girl could create Jinjutsu real enough to actually be reality if trained right, she could have surpassed even you, but what did you do have her powers sealed, because your pride couldn't take it, Anko says, looking Kurenai in the eye. You're wrong Yakumo had a demon inside it killed her parents, her powers were unstable, Kurenai shouts. Anko cups Kurenai's chin and she goes flush, so you say, but why did you drop her after how your pride again it was beneath you to teach her she says. Kurenai grits her teeth with a heated look, yes I tried to help her took time to make her powerful, But I couldn't have her surpass me in Genjutsu, so when Hokage-sama had her powers sealed, I decided not to help her anymore, securing that I was the Genjutsu mistress of Konoha. They're happy, she says. Anko pats Kurenai on the cheek with a nod, so why not us join then become the true mistress of Genjutsu. Naruto can make you powerful, she says and glances back. Right, Hinata, Anko says. Kurenai's breath hitches as Hinata steps out the shadow with her demonic features and no caged bird seal on her forehead. Anko is right, I've been like this for 2 months, and no one has noticed how my clan thinks I have that fucking seal and allowed me to be disowned, she states. Konoha only cares about what they can get from others, Naruto says, standing next to Hinata and her fox ears on display. How can you say the fox hasn't done anything? Kurenai and Naruto steps towards her. Naruto touches Kurenai's temples. I'll show you the reason the fox has no claim on me and why you should join us, Nightmare Teller, she shouts. Kurenai's eyes widen as the last 2 months replay like a horror film. Anko releases the vines as Naruto releases Nightmare Teller and Kurenai falls to her knees in horror and fury. So will join me, Kurenai-sensei, Naruto asks, extending her hand. Kurenai looks up with a tear-stained face. Yes, Naruto-sama, she whispers, taking the blonde's hand. Naruto pulls Kurenai to her feet, but the vines ensnare her form once again. It's for your safety, Nai-chan, Anko says. Naruto grasps Kurenai's shoulder and bites down to pump her demonic power into the ruby eye Kunoichi. Kurenai's screams echo through the forest as the black veins spread through her body. Kurenai's raven hair lengthens to her lower back and a pair of round curled horns form on both sides of her head. Welcome to the 7, Kurenai the arrogant, Naruto declares. Anko releases the vines and Naruto catches Kurenai. Come, let's go to Dis, Naruto says as Hinata and Anko grasps her shoulders. The 4 vanish in a ring of fire as clones of Hinata, Naruto and Kurenai appear and head back to the house. Hell. City of Dis. Naruto and company appear in the throne room as Zeldris was sitting on Lucifer's throne. Lady Naruto, Lady Hinata and Lady Anko, it seems a new addition as well, he asks. Naruto slowly nods and looks down at Kurenai. Yes, my pride, Kurenai the arrogant, she states. Zeldris rises from the throne as Hinata waves her hand to create a bed for Kurenai. Can you have Diriari meet us here, she asks. Of course, Zeldris states and excuses himself. Naruto takes a seat on her throne with a sigh, but a presence made herself known. Lilith, she hisses. Lilith saunters in with an amused look on her face, her light green heels moving along the stone floor under her light green dress. Why are you here, Lilith, Naruto asks, but Hinata scoffs. Lucifer is not here, it's the only reason she'd leave her circle, Hinata says. Lilith glares at Hinata, but scoffs. I came to see Veen, she says and runs her fingers through her red locks. You will see when you have children. Veen is such a disappointment, she must have inherited some of Lucifer's former angelic goodness, she muses. Is that the only reason you came here, is to badmouth Veen, Anko says, folding her arms. Naruto rises from her throne as Lilith was glaring at Anko. Leave, Lilith, I don't need your shit right now, she says. My shit, you would be wise not to speak to me like that, Lilith snaps, but found herself lifted of the ground by Diriari. Leave, Diriari calmly says, dropping the succubus. Lilith gives a heated look but runs and flies off the balcony. Who was that, Kurenai asks, having woke up. Anko plops on the bed. Lucifer's bitchy ex. So how do you feel, Nai-chan, she asks. Kurenai shifts on the bed and looks around. I feel stronger, but where are we, she asks. City of Dis and entrance to the 6th circle of heresy, Naruto says, helping Kurenai off the bed. Naruto glances to Diriari. Please get her kitted up with her new status, she says and Diriari nods. Follow, Diriari directs, to Kurenai. The ruby-eyed demoness slowly follows, but Anko decides to follow to be Kurenai's cheer section. Naruto returns to her throne, and Hinata takes a seat on the cushion next to her. The door suddenly opens as Satania comes in with a package of melon bread, but suddenly a white dog snatches it and leaps off the balcony. No, not again, that the 10th time today, Satania shouts, as Veen was behind her. Naruto and Hinata sweat drop. What's a dog like that is doing here, both thought. Hello, Naruto, Kasen. Veen greets and Satania runs into Naruto's arms. Hello, Veen, your mother was here, but Diriari ran her off, Naruto says. Thank you, Naruto, Kasen, Veen says. Naruto pats Satania on the head. It's okay, sweetie, she soothes. I know, but he takes it all the time, Satania says. Naruto rubs her back. I know, wanna go mess with Raffi, she says and Satania nods. Okay, mama, Satania says. 1 week later, teammate sat on Tazuna's unfinished bridge as they guard him for the day as he worked on said bridge. A week has passed for them as Kurenai was now up to standard as the Demon of Pride. Naruto gifted Kurenai the power of the ultimate spear. Her fingers can now twist, extend and transform into claws, capable of piercing even steel. When will Mitsuomi arrive, Hinata asks, going through some gentle fist katas. Naruto twirls her kunai with a glance to Shino as he was guarding Tazuna today, but he's going for the midget, she muses. Kurenai was curious to meet Mitsuomi as he didn't come to Dis during her time in hell. Is he really restrained so much, she asks. He is a normal human with limits. His body will burn from the inside out if he uses too much of his power. However, in places of literal hell on earth, his power is unrestrained, Naruto explains, and Kurenai slowly nods. Naruto spies Team 7 approaching and hops off the stack of wood. Time to switch, she says. Kakashi approaches with an eye smile. Any trouble, he asks. None, it seems Zabuza is still recovering, Kurenai comments. Sasuke scoffs and Sakura swoons. I'll defeat him, he says. Yeah, Team 7 will take him down, Kiba adds, but slightly flinches as Naruto stares at him. The blonde's blue eyes seem to burn into his soul, but it softens as she picks up Akamaru, and the pup licks her face. How goes the tree walking and water walking, she asks. I got the first day, Sakura says, but Sasuke glares. None of your business, dope, Sasuke says. Naruto puts Akamaru down with a sigh. Fine, I'm going back for a nap, she says, walking off with Hinata following. Kurenai and Shino soon follow as Team 7 takes their place as guards. Are you doing something to Kiba, Kurenai asks, as they near Tazuna's house. Naruto grins darkly with a glance to her pride. Since I returned I have been plaguing his nightmares. I look forward to leaving him in the circle of lust to be broken, she says. What about Sasuke, Hinata asks, and Naruto grins. I haven't decided, he was my first after all, even he was pathetic, Naruto says and notices the looks. He's not very big, it took him a few minutes to get it up, and once he started it was few grunts and a lackluster few shots. Hell, Kiba lasted longer, Naruto comments, and both laugh. However, Mitsuomi gave me back my virginity and took in it, a 5-hour marathon, Naruto adds, as they reach the house. Beto's compound. Beto's cane clangs on the floor as he made his way to his office, his arm in a cast and a scowl on his face. Geto was a short man with puffy brown hair and wearing a business suit. Behind him were his guards Waraji and Zori, both having katana swords. Zori was dressed in a dark purple hat on his head, the top of which extends far beyond the top of his head, with a blue jacket with multiple pockets. Waraji wears what seems to be a loose-fitting kimono, albeit not in the traditional manner, as the top half of the outfit falls around his waist, leaving his upper body exposed, with bandages around his waist. I will make Zabuza pay, Geto thought, opening the door. However, all three freeze as someone was sitting at his desk but facing the large window. Mr. Geto, you never call, you never write, the man says. That voice, Kiryu? Geto shouts. Mitsuomi turns to face Geto, wearing a gray 3/4 length hooded leather jacket with blue interior linings. A long-sleeve white Henley shirt with black gloves, a pair of black faded jeans and black military boots. The same, and they are Tsume and Hana, Mitsuomi says, pointing. Waraji and Zori whip around to see Tsume and Hana standing behind them. Tsume was wearing a long-sleeve mesh shirt that left nothing to the imagination. A pair of black shorts to her mid-thigh and sandals on her feet. While Hana wears a form-fitting variation of the Konoha flak jacket which doesn't have any chest pockets, and she keeps the front of her jacket unzipped, exposing her cleavage. She also wears a pair of form-fitting shorts cut just above the knee, bandages just below her tattoo and wrist warmers. Now, Mr. Geto, I made you a very generous offer for your company 5 times its current net worth, and you told me in so many words to go fuck myself, Mitsuomi starts, but Geto glares, but a haughty looks forms. Like I would sell to cocky upstart like you, Kiryu, I know all about you, you're like a vulture, and didn't earn your money. My shipping company controls this fucking nation, and you can't convince me to give this up for any amount of money, Geto states. Mitsuomi lights a cigar with a smile. Shipping company, so it's not the drugs or prostitution ring, maybe the slave ring you have, but honestly I could care less about what you do, he says, and rises from the seat. However, I take umbrage with the fact that your company is costing me money. Your company is keeping me from moving my assets to the southern islands, having to pay your company to even sail south, Mitsuomi says, rounding the desk. However, I rectified that this morning. I made you a generous offer for your company, but you said no, but your board was practical giddy to sign over everything for what I offered them, Mitsuomi says, crushing the cigar. Geto's eyes widen, but he grits his teeth in a rage. You stole my company, he shouts. Stole? No, I brought you out, and I now own Geto Shipping, Mitsuomi says, catching the cane. Waraji and Zori attempt to draw their swords, but Tsume and Hana rip out their hearts with their claws. Mitsuomi pulls the cane from Geto's grasp and hits the shorter man in the leg, with enough force to snap the leg and drop the Geto to the ground. Ah, you bastard, Geto shouts. Mitsuomi raises the cane with a sick grin on his face and starts beating Geto over and over with his cane. A few splatters of blood hit Tsume in the face, but she licks off the blood with a titter, and Hana catches what Tsume missed. Fufu, now let's go see Zabuza. Oh, first go kill all his mercenaries, Mitsuomi says, holding the dripping cane. Tsume looks down at what used to be Geto's head. On your order, master, she says, as both rush off. Zabuza's hideout. Zabuza quietly counts off push-ups as Haku was cutting an apple for him. A few more days, and we'll go after the bridge builder, he says. Haku looks up with a nod, but her eyes widen. Zabuza-sama, she says, pointing. Zabuza gets up and grabs a kunai as a man was squatting in front of the Kubikirabacho. Who are you? he says, leaking his kai. What an exquisite blade, the lives it's taken, friends, fellow students, allies, enemies, magnifique, the man says and glances to Zabuza. How many did you kill, he added. Zabuza kept himself calm, but was shocked that his kai had not affected this man. Tell me your name, and I'll tell you, he says. Mitsuomi and your new boss, the man says, tossing the bloody cane. Zabuza keeps his kunai pointed at Mitsuomi and slowly picks up the cane, seeing a blood and some brain matter. Why did you kill the midget, Zabuza asks, dropping the cane. Mitsuomi rises to his feet with his hands up. I own Kiryu Incorporated, and the midget was in my way, so how many did you kill, he says. Too many to count, Zabuza says, and Mitsuomi grins to show his white pearls. So why did you saddle up with the troll doll, Mitsuomi asks. Zabuza keeps his caution up, but sits on his cot. I needed money to overthrow the Mizukage, the bastard has been killing people just because they have a bloodline, so I tried to kill him and failed. The only good thing I got from it is my tool Haku, he explains. I heard about the civil war, it tears families apart as loyalists strive to kill all bloodline users, and bloodlines users strive to life and overthrow the loyalist tyranny. I had one of my ships destroyed when several bloodline users snuck aboard. I lost about 4 dozen people because of this zealotry, Mitsuomi says. So you would help us due to your loss of people, Haku asks. Mitsuomi stares at the young girl. Actually, I could care less about those people, but the loyalists took what was mine, he states. You speak as if they were beneath you, even us judging by your eyes, Haku says. Mitsuomi softly laughs with a smirk on his face. That's because I am, no one is above me, he says. Quite the opinion of yourself, you know what they say about pride, Zabuza says, and Mitsuomi laughs. Not the first I've heard it since it was made because of me. Pride kept me from bowing to those lesser than me, so I was forced to fall. However, we're getting off topic. I'll grant you the power to aid in the rebellion happening in Water Country, but at a price, Mitsuomi says. Zabuza furrows his brow at Mitsuomi. What price, he asks. Not much, just your souls, Mitsuomi says, lighting a cigarette with a grin. Haku gasps with wide eyes, but Zabuza stares. Who are you really, he asks. Mitsuomi holds his cigarette between his gloved fingers. The reason for the term pride goeth before the fall, the fallen one, he says. Impossible, Yami. Zabuza shouts. Mitsuomi takes a drag with a smirk and nod. The one and only so will accept my offer, he says. Zabuza rises off his cot with a serious look on his face. I am already going to hell when I die, so why not serve its ruler, he says. The girl, Mitsuomi asks, and removes his left glove. She is my tool, she will follow me anywhere, Zabuza replies. Mitsuomi places his hand on Zabuza's bare chest. Now let's make you a true demon, he says, summoning his limited demonic power. Zabuza winces and clenches his fists as Mitsuomi's power enters his body. His skin turns an icy blue tone, and a Oni mask forms on his back, while 2 black horns emerge on his forehead. Zabuza drops to his knees with gulping breaths. Ha ha ha, I feel less stronger, he says. Haku, your turn, my dear, Mitsuomi states. Haku slowly approaches and Mitsuomi touches her cheek, causing Haku to wince slightly as her skin becomes deathly pale. Haku's raven hair became snow white and her dark brown eyes became a glowing violet. Mitsuomi releases his touch as ice crystals had formed on his hand, but making a fist, and it melts into steam. You two now full-fledged demons, Zabuza and Oni and Haku, you are Yuki Onna, Mitsuomi, and slips on his glove. I have a mission for you, he adds. What kind of mission, Yami-sama, Haku asks, her snow woman features fading. Zabuza does the same as Mitsuomi slips off his coat and picks up the Kubikirabacho. I want you to embarrass Kakashi Haddock and his team, don't kill them, but destroy their pride, he says, rolling up his sleeve. Mitsuomi opens his arm with the Kubikirabacho to allow his black blood to run along and into the blade. Now this a weapon worthy of a demon, he croons. What about the other team, Zabuza asks, taking the sword. Smoke rises from Mitsuomi's wound as he lowers his sleeve. They won't be there, Team 7 is currently at the bridge. Once my wife arrives, retreat and come back here, he states. Who's your wife, Zabuza comments and Mitsuomi grins. The blonde now be on your way, Mitsuomi says. Zabuza slips on a black shirt to hide his tattoo and the pair vanish into mist, leaving Mitsuomi alone. Footsteps catch Mitsuomi's ear as he slips on his coat. Very proficient, my hounds, he says, turning to a blood-soaked Sum and Hana. We aim to please, Hana says, licking her bloody lips. Mitsuomi picks up Gato's cane and twirls it in his hand. Now let's go desecrate Gato's bed as we wait for them to return, he say, and both women giggle. Team 7. Unfinished bridge. Kakashi looks out over the ocean with his book in hand, but his senses pick up something. However, a thick mist forms and screams erupt. Form up, Zabuza is here, he shouts. Sasuke, Sakura and Kiba reach him as a worker stumbles out the mist before them, his body suffering from extreme hypothermia and missing an arm. Demons, he utters, collapsing over dead. Zabuza steps out the mist with a laugh in his throat and Haku next to them. Time for our rematch, Kakashi, he sneers. Meanwhile, Naruto was sitting on the sofa with Inari sleeping in her lap and her gloved hand stroking his head. Naruto had set the boy straight during the week and she was now thinking of ways to corrupt the little boy. Maybe have him rape and kill his mother, but not in that order, perhaps have him destroy Sakura, rip out her vocal cords, and force them down her destroyed throat, or sewn her mouth to Kiba's ass or vice versa, Naruto thought, giggling darkly. Loud scratching caught Naruko's ears and she substitutes with a pillow as not to disturb Inari. Naruko reaches the door and opens it to find Akamaru whining loudly, also hearing it her teammates rush to the door. Something has happened, Shino comments. Kurenai picks up the puppy and he was cold and a few senbon in his body, Zabuza may have attacked, she says. Naruko and I will go the bridge, Shino and Hinata will remain here to guard Tsunami and Inari, Kurenai says, and they nod. Kurenai and Naruko take to the trees, will the battle be over, Kurenai asks. Yufufu Zabuza was ordered by Mitsuomi to embarrass them and retreat once I arrive with their new power. Team 7 stands no chance, Naruko croons. The pair reach the bridge as Tazuna was on his knees praying to Kami. Gyuden. Totapa, Naruko shouts. The wind blows the mist away as Sakura was in front of Tazuna, shaking in terror and a puddle of urine under her. Kiba was near them on the bridge riddled with senbon and down for the count. A dome of ice surrounded Sasuke and he was bleeding from multiple wounds, while Kakashi was one knee with X-shaped gashes on his vest and a few more scratches bleeding. Kakashi, Kurenai shouts, playing her part. Zabuza sees them but whistles to Haku and she drops her ice dome, causing Sasuke to collapse. Consider yourselves lucky, Kakashi, I've had my fun with you after killing Gato. Zabuza sneers and looks to the praying Tazuna, seems your prayers were answered, old man, he shouts. Haku looks down at Sasuke and removes her mask as he glares back, you were lucky today, Zabuza-sama was generous to spare your lives, she says, and reappears next to Zabuza. At back here, bitch, Sasuke shouts, trying to get back to his feet but fails. Zabuza rests his Kubakirabacho on his shoulder, remember this day, Kakashi, because I held your life in my hands, he sneers, as they vanish into mist. Kakashi pulls down his hit I-8 with a glare as Kurenai reaches him, are you alright, she asks, starting to attend to his wounds. I pried, Kakashi says, but Kurenai slightly scoffs. You were lucky that Mitsuomi ordered them not to kill you, Kurenai thought. Naruko made several clones to help Kiba and Sasuke, but the Uchiha refuses her aid. Stay away from Sasuke-kun, Narubaka, Sakura shouts, reeking of urine. Naruko raises her hands in defeat and goes to check on Kiba, her clones pulling out the senbon. Kiba scrunches his face and his eyes slowly open, but his breath hitches as Naruko stares back. Naruko leans down so only Kiba can hear her, I will make you pay for raping me, you, and those who were there, I will make your lives a living hell, she whispers and starts to attend to his wounds, as Kiba shakes in fear. Zabuza and Haku appear in Gato's office as Mitsuomi was sitting at the desk and shotgunning a bottle of vodka. Mitsuomi tosses the bottle at Gato's corpse, mission accomplished, he asks. Yeah, Haku took down the dog boy quickly, the girl pissed herself, and the Uchiha fared slightly better and gained another Tomo on his Sharingan, according to Haku. As for Kakashi, he lasted a little while longer than our last encounter, Zabuza explains. Mitsuomi slaps the desk with a laugh, good, he says, and tosses a duffel bag to Zabuza. It's some money towards the rebellion, Mitsuomi says, and holds a pieces of paper, also someone to help you for now, they are waiting there, he adds. Zabuza takes the paper, I was wondering would you give this power on others if asked, he questions. Mitsuomi crosses his legs with a light of his cigar, not just anyone, someone of worth, he replies. The leader of the rebel Mei Terumi, she is powerful and has 2 bloodlines, Zabuza states. Mitsuomi rests his head on his knuckle with a drag, have her come to Konoha to seek aid from the Hokage, I will meet her then have her stay at the Golden Leaf, he says. Zabuza slowly nods and both vanish into mist as Mitsuomi titters softly, I should return quickly, he thought. A few days later, Zabuza and Haku reach the address on the paper. It was compound located hot water country, I wonder who this person is, Haku asks. If the boss recommended them they must be strong, Zabuza says, but stops as someone was standing in front of the gate. The person, fairly tall woman with fair skin and pupil-less brown eyes. She had green hair that she tied in a bun on top of her head with a hair needle running through it and one short and long strands of hair with orange tips framing each side of her face. Her attire consists of a sleeveless backless top and short tight pants, with 2 lapels on the front and the back. She wears an obi around her waist, as well as purple arm warmers which extend up to her shoulders, and has bandages around her tights and ankles. No way, you're Pakura of the Shakutin hero of Suna, Zabuza says. Pakura folds her arms with a scoff, former I was betrayed by Suna, but I was saved by a certain devil, so, judging by you finding this place, Lucifer wants me to help you, she says, her eyes turning a glowing green. 4 days later, Nami no Kuni. Mitsuomi strolls through the forest towards Tazuna's home with Hana and her Ninkin, the Himera brothers. After sending Zabuza to meet Pakura and setting Gato's compound on fire, Mitsuomi returned to Nami under the guise of a simple business mission for his company, but Sachiko and Saratobi felt he needed a bodyguard and he chose Hana. I can't believe you know Pakura the Shakutin and saved her life. What other secrets do you have? Hana asks, her arm interlocked with his. Mitsuomi blows smoke from his nose with a giggle. I'm the father of the Sage of Six Paths, he says, and Hana gawks. Just kidding, but I did see his mother and be honest, I would have tapped it, Mitsuomi says and laughs but clears his throat. As for Pakura, she was a hero in Suna, but she was betrayed and left to killed by Kiri. However, before dying, I found her and brought her into the fold, he explains. So Hana, would you let your Ninkins become a Cerberus? Mitsuomi asks. Hana glances to her 3 pups. I wouldn't mind, how about you 3, she says, and the 3 bark in approval. The small group reaches the clearing next to Tezuna's house and they spy Team 7 going through training. Sis, what you doing here? Kiba shouts. Hana hides her disdain for her brother, just a simple escort mission for Kiryu-san, she says. Mitsuomi waves as Akamaru runs up to the Himeru brothers. Yes, I had some business with a rival of mine, and Hokage-sama felt I needed an escort, so Ms. Tsume offered Hana to be my escort, he explains. Naruko comes out the house and spies Mitsuomi. Hello Anata, what brings you here? She shouts. Mitsuomi approaches Naruko and gives her deep and tongue-filled kiss, shocking Team 7 and causing Sakura to glare in anger. Other than that, I came to inform a Mr. Gato that I bought out his shipping company, but reaching his compound I saw it was burned down, and since I knew your team was here, I came to see if you knew about it, Mitsuomi explains, after pulling away from Naruko. Kakashi closes his book with a hard look. Gato was killed by a missing nin named Zabuza Mamachi, he explains. I see, that is a real shame. Anyway, as I came into Nami I saw the bridge and it looks amazing. I was wondering if I could meet its creator, Mitsuomi says. Naruko takes his hand. He's inside, she says, and pulls him along, but Sasuke decided to make his presence known. Give me that sword, Sasuke says, pointing to Mitsuomi's hip. Mitsuomi lifts his grey coat to show the sword. Sorry, this sword was gift from my late sensei, he says, dropping his coat. Give Sasuke that sword now, Sakura screeches. Naruko glares at Sakura with a scowl. Don't you hear? Mitsuomi won't give Sasuke his Mugenjin, she says, and Kakashi gasps. Did you say Mugenjin? Kakashi says, and Mitsuomi nods. The same sword, my sensei was the first wielder of this blade, and I am its second, having killed him for it, Mitsuomi says, his eyes taking a sadistic look. Mitsuomi with Naruko and Hana head inside as Sasuke was glowering both. What's so special about this sword? I'll make the council get it for me, he thought. Tazuna was sitting in the kitchen as Inari was drinking juice. Who's Hinari? Inari asks. This is Mitsuomi and he's my husband, Naruko replies, and the family freezes. You're married, Naruko-chan, but you are so young, Tsunami says. Naruko softly smiles and points to the hit I-8 around her neck. In the eyes of village, once you don this hit I-8 you are an adult, and Mitsuomi is only 2 years older than me, she explains. Hello sir, ma'am, I am Mitsuomi Kiryu. It's a pleasure, Mitsuomi says, bowing slightly. Tazuna freezes with a gulp. Kiryu as in Kiryu Incorporated, he says, and Mitsuomi nods. Yes, the very same, and this actually makes this easier. I came to Nami to inform Mr. Gato that his company was bought out by my company, but Kakashi informed me that he was dead, so if I can I would like to help Nami get back on its feet, Mitsuomi explains. That's a lot like what Gato said when he first arrived, but your eyes tell a different story, Tazuna states. Mitsuomi smiles softly and glances to Naruko. Many people call me a vulture or a snake because I didn't earn my money, but my father groomed me since I was small to inherit his company. Yes, some of the things I do are cruel and arrogant, but for all the bad things I do just as much good. So Mr. Tazuna, let me help Nami no Kuni as best I can, he says, his disarming smile on display. Naruko notices Tsunami was blushing slightly. Silver tongue indeed, Naruko thought. Tazuna takes a sip of his coffee. I'll have to speak with the other villagers, but if you are genuine we will welcome your aid, he says. That's excellent, I'll send word to my assistant Bazette and she will put together care packages for aiding in your recovery. I can have a shipment here in a week's time, Mitsuomi states, but Tsunami notices his flushed cheeks. Are you alright, Kiryu-san? Tsunami asks, concerned. Naruko plucks his head with a rub of her forehead. You pushed yourself too much, she chides. Mitsuomi pulls a cloth from his coat pocket to wipe his brow. Sorry, I wanted to get here as quickly as possible. I was a concerned husband after all, he says. You sick kid? Tazuna asks, as Tsunami places a glass of iced water on the table. Mitsuomi drank the water in a few gulps, but pulls off his left glove. Not really, but I have a condition that affects me if I overextend myself, he says, and place an ice cube on his bare hand. Tazuna and his family gasp as Mitsuomi makes a fist and the ice cube melts in his hand. I was born with a high body temperature. I can do strenuous activity for 15 minutes with no issue, but exceeding that becomes detrimental to my health, he explains. Tazuna, can Mitsuomi have a room to rest in? He's gonna keel over any minute, Naruko says, and Tsunami leads them to an upstairs room as Kurenai, Hinata and Hana follow. Thanks Tsunami-san, Naruko says, closing the door and putting up several silencing seals. Mitsuomi plops on the bed with a sigh. That was fine acting if I must say, he muses, unlacing his boots and slipping out his coat. Nice to meet you Kurenai, the arrogant Mitsuomi muses. Kurenai gasps and looks to Hana, but she giggles. I already know, she says, her eyes glowing red. Hana's skin turns dark gray, dark red fur covers her forearms and shins, with a pair of dog ears on her head and a fluffy tail from her rear. Hana Inyazuka, hellhound of Lord Lucifer with my mom, Hana declares. Kurenai reveals her demonic features and Hana giggles. No tail like Anko, she says. Can you all leave me to my nap, Mitsuomi says, pulling his coat over himself. Naruko arches an eyebrow. So you were tired, she asks. Mitsuomi opens a single eye with a point to Hana. Blame her, we fucked several times on the way here, he says, and the three glower her. Now let me sleep, he says, as they leave. Flashback heaven. Lucifer and his siblings Michael, Gabriel, Uriel and Raphael knelt before the throne of Kami. Michael looks identical to his twin Lucifer, but with white hair and dark violet eyes. Gabriel has slicked back dark blonde hair and honey eyes, while Raphael has long white hair with black tips and blue eyes. Uriel was the only female of her siblings, and she long sliver hair and gold eyes. Before them on her raised throne was Kami bathed in light, but her silver white hair could be seen. I have created new beings called humans, I have made them in my image, and given them free will. I ask my angels to watch over them, guide them, they will stumble, but they are destined for greatness, Kami says, her voice soft, calm and powerful. As you command, all declare in unison, rising from their kneeling positions. The 5 archangels turns to leave the throne room. Lucifer, a moment, Kami says. Lucifer turns and bows to one knee. I worry for you, Lucifer, Kami starts. You need not worry, Kami-sama, Lucifer says, but Kami frowns. Your pride is what I worry for. You and Michael are twins yet opposites. You are prideful and Michael is humble. I fear you will grow to hate humanity, Kami states. Lucifer held his head low to hide his anger. They are flawed, he whispers. Unlike you and your fellow angels, even my angels are not infallible, Lucifer. I beseech you to give humanity a change, Kami states, and Lucifer raises his head, his steel blue eyes pinned on Kami's radiance. Then flashback, Mitsuomi opens his eyes and feels wetness. Dabbing his eyes, he sees black tears on his glove. Mitsuomi sits up slowly with a glare on his face. I did, and they chose wrong, he thought. I didn't know devils cried, Naruko says. Mitsuomi rubs his eyes with a snort. Even devils cry, he muses, getting off the bed. Mitsuomi pulls her into a hug. Just thinking about the past, he muses. It's hard to compete with a literal goddess, Naruko says, but Mitsuomi tightened his grip. She knew me better than anyone, not even my brother Michael. She knew my pride wouldn't let me bow to humans. Unlike Michael, Mitsuomi says and looks up. I remember when she casted me out, I saw her tears, he adds. Naruko looks up and sees his black tears. I know I'll always be second to her, but unlike her, I will love you no matter what, she says, standing on her tippy toes to kiss him. You're too good for me, my queen, Mitsuomi says, heading to the bathroom to wash his face. Mitsuomi eventually came down with Naruko. Are you feeling better, Kiryu-san? Tsunami asks. Yes, and thank you for the room, Mitsuomi says, taking a seat on the sofa. Sasuke and Sakura were glowering him from the kitchen table, but Mitsuomi's gaze was on Kiba. Naruko has told me a lot about you, Kiba, he says, his eyes glinting. Kiba gulps slightly but glances to his sister, and she was glaring at him. Not all bad, he says. Mitsuomi switches his seat to sit next to Kiba. Oh no, I should thank you, because he starts and leans closer. Your actions and others gave me my queen. I look forward to what she does to you, he whispers, causing Kiba's eyes to widen. Mitsuomi leans back with a dark grin, but it quickly shifts to a normal one as he pats Kiba on the head. Mr. Tazuna, I will return to Konoha and inform Bizet to get everything started, and in 1 week the aid will arrive, but I won't be with them, however. Naruko knows the odd and ends to help with it, Mitsuomi says, rising from his seat. Mitsuomi extends his hand to Tazuna, and they share a firm handshake. Thank you so much, Kiryu-san, he says. No need, Mr. Tazuna, if you excuse me, Mitsuomi says, excusing himself and Hana following. Naruko follows him out to say goodbye. I'll see you tonight, he says, kissing her. Mitsuomi with Hana and the Himari triplets take to the trees towards the coast. So when will Kiba get it, she asks, and the Prince of Lies smiles. Very soon, Mitsuomi says, as they vanish into a swirl of flames. A month later, Team 7 and 8 stood on the now complete bridge as Tazuna and his family stood with them. Naruko, please tell Kiryu-san thank you so much for his assistance, Tazuna says. I will, Tazuna-san, Naruko says and leans down to hug Inari. Be a hero like your dad, she says, and he nods. Sasuke was glaring at Naruko. That fucking bitch, he thought. Tazuna and his family wave as the group take off at shinobi speed. I think we'll call the new bridge the Great Naruko Bridge, Tazuna muses, walking with his family. The trip back to Konoha was quiet, but Sasuke and Sakura were giving dirty looks to Naruko and Hinata, while Kiba was keeping his gaze off of Naruko. I can't wait to get home and take a nice long bath, Naruko muses and Hinata giggles. And have some of Kiryu-san's food, Hinata comments. I bet it tastes awful, Sakura shot. Naruko laughs into her sleeve. Mitsuomi owns the restaurant near the Golden Leaf Hotel, and he cooks there once a week. You need to make a reservation a week in advance to try his cooking, she boasts. I heard about that he calls the restaurant Sweet Gluttony now, Kakashi comments and Naruko nods. Yeah, Tuchi Jiji and Amni work there now too, Naruko states. The group fell into silence as they pick up the pace, arriving in Konoha about an hour later. Kurenai and Kakashi dismiss them at the gate as they turn in their mission report to the Hokage. Shino bows to his team as he heads for home, followed by Kiba in a rush with Akamaru. Naruko and Hinata head for their compound, but we're being followed by Sasuke and Sakura. Why are you following us, Naruko says, stopping near her compound. Sasuke was glowering her with serious look. I want that sword your husband has, he says. Yes, Sasuke-kun is better suited for it, Sakura chimes in. Naruko rubs her forehead but walks off towards her home, but Sasuke and his minion follow again. Naruko and Hinata reach the compound. Stop following us, Naruko shouts. I want that sword, Sasuke fires back. Naruko was about to retort, but loud snaps echoes from inside. Opening the gate, they were treated to a shirtless Mitsuomi. The blue-eyed Prince of Darkness was doing a combination of kicks and punches to wrapped wooden pole. Naruko and Hinata stealthily lick their lips as Mitsuomi moves with such grace. His movements are refined and no waste of movement, each strike meant to do harm, Hinata notes. Ah, Sasuke-kun is so much better, Sakura sneers. Sasuke activated his Sharingan to copy the moves, but his eyes widen as Mitsuomi lands a rising knee to the top of the 6-foot pole. Mitsuomi pants softly and grabs a pail of water near him, drenching himself, but Sakura and Sasuke were shocked as the water turns to steam as it washes over him. Naruko and Hinata enter through the gate, but turn to stop Sasuke and Sakura. This is clan ground unless given permission by me, and you can't enter, she says, shutting the gate. Open this gate now, Sasuke shouts. Mitsuomi approaches with a towel around his neck. What's with the shouting, he asks. I want your sword, Sasuke snaps, but Mitsuomi slicked back his wet hair. Why, it's useless to you. The Mugenjin was specifically designed for someone like me, he explains, but Sasuke wasn't having it. Mitsuomi wipes his face with a sigh. How about this, meet me at your training ground in 2 hours with your sensei, and I'll show you why this sword is useless to someone like you, Mitsuomi says. Sasuke clenches his fists with a glare, but stomps off with his pet. That'll shut him up for a little while, Mitsuomi muses. Naruko and Hinata follow him inside. You know he'll whine to the council after you embarrass him, Hinata says, dropping her look. Maybe, but those fools will tell him about their plans for my money and tell he'll get the sword that way, Mitsuomi muses. 2 hours later, Kakashi, Sakura and Sasuke stood in their training ground waiting for Mitsuomi and the others. Kakashi closes his book with a look to Sasuke. You can't force someone to give up their possession, Kakashi comments. Sasuke scoffs as footsteps catch their ears. In the distance was Mitsuomi, Naruko and Hinata. Mitsuomi was wearing a black 3-piece suit with black harness boots, white dress shirt with a black tie and gloves. The Mugenjin in a harness around his waist and a briefcase in his right gloved hand. I would like to hurry this along, I still need take care of some business before Sweet Gluttony opens, Mitsuomi says, reaching them. Sasuke sports a haughty look on his face. So you will give me that sword, he says, but Mitsuomi has a blank look on his face. My words were I'll show you why this sword is useless to someone like you, Mitsuomi states, placing the briefcase next to Hinata. Mitsuomi steps forward and draws the Mugenjin and points to the blade. This sword was made to end lives, he says. Kakashi looks closer and his eye widen. So it's true, the blade is chipped in a serrated pattern. I heard this blade never dulls or rusts, despite the lives it has ended, he explains. And a perfect sword for an Uchiha, Sasuke says. Mitsuomi drives the sword into the grass but moves it along, causing a line flames to form. This sword can ignite anything through friction because the fat and oil from every person killed by this sword is soaked within it, Mitsuomi says, leaving the sword in the dirt. Sasuke quickly tries to grab the sword, but it won't budge from the dirt. What did you do to it? He shouts. Nothing, Mitsuomi says, nonchalantly. Kakashi touches the hilt. Seals, he asks, and Mitsuomi draws it with ease. Yes, it to keep some people for using this tainted blade, Mitsuomi says, sheathing it. Give it to me. Sasuke shouts, but Mitsuomi ignores him and picks up his briefcase. Sasuke charges Mitsuomi but halts in his tracks as the tip of the Mugenjin was inches from his eye. You would be wise to remember not everything revolves around you, Mitsuomi says, seriously. Mitsuomi, Naruko and Hinata walk off as Sasuke was glaring rage and Sakura trying and failing and glaring. Mama, why don't we do some training? Kakashi and Sasuke storms off in a huff, followed by his shadow. Sweet Gluttony. Mitsuomi sits at one table with his back to the bar as Naruko was having a meal upstairs while Hinata and Kurenai were training. A knock on the double glass door caught his ears and he looks up from his paperwork. Just a sec, he shouts. Mitsuomi unlocks the doors as Sachiko was waiting. Hello Kiryu-san, may I come in, she asks. Of course, but we aren't open yet, Mitsuomi says, holding open the door. Sachiko sachets in as Mitsuomi closes the door. How can I help you today, he asks, walking to the bar. I wanted to talk business with you. I have a concern about something, Sachiko comments, taking a seat at the table he was sitting at. Mitsuomi places a glass of Chardonnay in front of her. I'll help as best I can, he says, retaking his seat with the bottle between them. Do you know of the Yukimaru Zaibatsu, Sachiko asks, after sipping her wine. Mitsuomi feigns ignorance under guise of thought. I've heard of them, a relatively new consortium of investors. Why, he asks, signing several papers. They have been buying up companies owned by my fellow council members, and it's allowing an unknown outsider to infringe on what we have built, Sachiko comments. Mitsuomi places a few papers in his briefcase. Would you like my help in finding out about the investors of Yukimaru Zaibatsu, he asks. Sachiko's eyes light up as she places her glass on the table. Would you, Kiryu-san, she asks. Of course, but by the same token I can use your help, Mitsuomi replies, and Sachiko arches an eyebrow. Your daughter is teammates with Sasuke Uchiha. Well, as of late, he has been harassing my wife and I concerning certain things. Now Sasuke-san is the talk of the village because of his clan. However, if he keeps it up and becomes more brazen in his actions, I may be forced to pull out of Konoha, Mitsuomi adds. Sachiko's eyes widen slightly at the implication. No need for that, Kiryu-san, I'll talk to Sasuke-kun, she says. Mitsuomi gives a disarming smile. Thank you, Sachiko-chan, and give me some time, and I'll find out everything about Yukimaru Zaibatsu, he says, and Sachiko blushes slightly. Thank you, Kiryu-kun, Sachiko says and excuses herself. I can imagine what people will think when some find out what they really eating, Naruto says, as Mitsuomi locks the door. Mitsuomi turns with a demonic grin on his face. That will be a fun day, he muses. It seems it went like you thought, Naruto says, pouring herself a glass of Chardonnay. Mitsuomi retakes his seat as Naruto takes his lap. Human are easy to read, he says and tickles her belly, before resting his head on her chest. Oh, I may have a bead on one of your 7, and it can help us in the long run, Mitsuomi says, and Naruto furrows her brow. Naruto asks and Mitsuomi grins. Sweet Greet Casino. Tsunade Senju was not in a good mood as she looks at her hand. Damn it, I should have quit while I was ahead, she thought. Tsunade has honey brown eyes and straight shoulder-length blonde hair kept tied in 2 loose ponytails. She wears a grass-green haori with a kanji for gamble on the back, inside a red circle. Underneath she wears a grey kimono-style blouse with no sleeves, held closed by a broad dark bluish-grey obi that matches her pants. She also wears open-toed strappy black sandals with high heels and red nail polish on both her fingernails and toenails, and uses a soft pink lipstick. Across from Tsunade was Mitsuomi as he introduced himself with several people. Mitsuomi was wearing black jeans with a silver-studded belt, a wallet chain and a pair of black cowboy boots. A grey long-sleeve shirt that clung to his body with 3 bracelets on each arm and black gloves. Shit'll call, Tsunade says, pushing her chips forward. The others start fold as Mitsuomi reveals his cards. Full house, he says, and Tsunade curses, rising from her seat. Wait, Ms., how about one more hand, Mitsuomi asks, and Tsunade's eyes narrow. Why, I lost everything I won, Tsunade snaps. Mitsuomi raises his hands in surrender. Easy, I know the owner, and he is about making deals. I bet he'll give you a shot to win back your money, he says. Tsunade stares incredulously at Mitsuomi, but her greed outweighed her reason. Alright, I'm in, she says. Mitsuomi rises from his seat and beckons for Tsunade to follow him. You won't regret this, he muses, taking her upstairs. Mitsuomi and Tsunade reach a posh office with several sofas, and on one sofa was a blonde with blue eyes, drinking wine. The blonde was wearing a sleeveless white shirt and a grey undershirt connected to her heeled green-grey shoes. She also wears a pair of unbuttoned white trousers and a belt with orange and black stripes, with a white trench coat draped on the sofa. I thought the owner was a guy, Tsunade says, and Mitsuomi chuckles. I am, Mitsuomi says, taking a seat at the desk. You're the owner, Tsunade says, folding her arms under her godly bosom. Mitsuomi slowly nods with a glance to the blonde. I am, and I will make you a deal: 1 hand of poker, sudden death, a card deck of your choice, you win, and I'll pay off all of your various debts and give you a few million on top of that you lose, and your life is mine to do with as I see fit, he explains. My life? Tsunade snaps and Mitsuomi nods. Yes, I can do the worst thing imaginable to you or the best thing imaginable. Right now I'm leaning to latter, Mitsuomi comments. Tsunade took a thinking pose but pulls a deck from between her as her greed won again. Alright, I'm game, Tsunade say and pulls a chair to the desk. Tsunade shuffles the cards as Mitsuomi lights a cigar, taking his cards as Tsunade passes them. Tsunade picks up her cards and she had 3 kings, good, she thought, tossing 2 and drawing 2. However, Mitsuomi doesn't take any cards. What is doing? Bluffing? No, he wouldn't, Tsunade thought, looking at her 2 10 cards. Ready to show him, Mitsuomi says, tapping his ashes. Tsunade glares at Mitsuomi and shows her cards. Full house, kings over 10, she says. Mitsuomi whistles with an impressed look on his face. Impressive, but I have to break your heart, he says, and reveals his 4 aces, causing Tsunade's eyes widen. Yufufu seems the legendary sucker lives up to her title, the blonde comments, and Mitsuomi laughs. Now dear, it's not her fault, I have the devil's luck, Mitsuomi says. Tsunade stares in disbelief as a tear runs down her cheek. You won, my life is yours, what do you want, kill me or you want my body, she whispers. Neither, your life is her choice, Mitsuomi says, pointing to the blonde. The blonde rises from her seat and approaches the older blonde. Do you recognize me, she asks. Tsunade looks at the younger blonde with a perplexed look, her blue eyes seem soul-piercing, and a round face reminded her of someone. I am the godchild a certain monkey told you died, Naruto Uzumaki, Naruto says. Tsunade's eyes widen in shock and quickly narrow in anger, but Naruto touches her temples. Nightmare teller, Naruto declares. Tsunade's eyes widen in shock as Naruto's earliest memories to the present replayed, causing the older woman to shake in shock and anger. Those bastards, Tsunade shouts, but Naruto hugs her tightly. Don't worry, they will pay in due time, Naruto says, Tsunade wrapping her arms around her. I want to help make one of your 7, Tsunade says. Naruto stares into Tsunade's honey brown orbs and smiles. Of course, godmother Tsunade the avaricious, she says, and slips off the green Haori and swiftly bites Tsunade's shoulder. Tsunade cries out as the black veins spread through her body, her eyes widen as the white of her eyes turns black and her brown orbs glow. Her blonde hair lengthens to her waist and 2 huge curled horns point downwards from the back and top and center of her head. Mitsuomi guzzles his vodka as Naruto pulls away from Tsunade and the older woman falls from the chair. 2 spots left, he muses. Tsunade slowly gets to her feet and looks around, but touches her head and feels her new horns. I need a drink, she whispers, and Mitsuomi tosses her a vodka bottle. So what now, Tsunade asks, after taking a few big gulps. Naruto retrieves her wine, not much. We're still in the planning phase, still need to get the last members of my 7 Wrath and Gluttony, but things may pick up in a few months with the Chunin exams, she comments. The Chunin exams will be big for us, and we can put you in place as Gotti, Mitsuomi says, playing with Tsunade's cards. Tsunade takes another long pull from the bottle. Goddamn, is that monkey gonna die, she asks. Well, I have on good authority that your former teammate Orochimaru is gonna attack during the exams per his plan. With the old fool Sarutobi dies a hero for his cesspool, leaving a vacancy. Danzo will throw his hat into it, but judging that his age rival Sarutobi, he won't be the ideal choice. Jiraiya will be next choice, but the pervert will decline due to interfering with his research. You would be a logical choice as granddaughter of the Shadame, grandniece of the Nidame and student of the Sandame, Mitsuomi explains. Danzo wouldn't like that choice, neither those 2 old bats, Tsunade comments, taking a seat as Mitsuomi deals out a hand. Naruto giggles with a sip of her wine. This, we know you haven't been in the village in years and would put their plans in trouble, however. My devious husband knows someone who has the ear of the current daimyo one Achika Yamanori, she says. His niece. Tsunade shouts and Mitsuomi giggles. I have powerful friends, I'll suggest to Achika that you would be better choice and would solidify Konoha having such an illustrious pedigree as Hokage, Mitsuomi comments. Tsunade tosses 2 cards with a laugh. You really are the devil, she says. So what will I do until then, Tsunade asks and Naruto giggles. Continue what you're doing, gamble, drink, be greedy, Naruto says. What about Shizune, Tsunade says, but both have look on their faces. We can bring her in, go get her, Naruto says. Tsunade downs the remains bottle and retracts her demonic features before excusing herself. How about a mouse, Mitsuomi says, and Naruto giggles darkly. About 20 minutes later, Tsunade returns with her apprentice and step-niece Shizune. She has a modest figure under black with white trim kimono, a wide obi keeping it closed and wearing sandals similar to Tsunade. Who are you people, Shizune asks, concern in her dark eyes. Tsunade steps outside for a moment but soon a scream then a thump before going back inside. Shizune was laying on the floor with mouse-like ears poking from her black hair and a mouse-like tail coming from under her kimono. Suits her perfectly, Tsunade says and Naruto giggles. 3 months later, the various Jonin gather in the Hokage's office as Sarutobi smokes his pipe. The time has come for the Chunin's exams, I would to hear your nominations, he states. Several of the Jonin put forth their teams. Kakashi Haddock nominate Sasuke Uchiha Sakura Haruno and Kiba Inuzuka, Kakashi states, shocking several. Kurenai Yuhi nominate Naruto Uzumaki Shino Aburam and Hinata Hyuga, Kurenai states and Naruto gasps. I assume Sarutobi nominate Shikamaru Nara Ino Yamanaka and Choji Akimichi, Asuma states, and Iruka bolts up from his seat. Okage-sama, they are rookies taking the exam this early, they aren't ready, Iruka shouts. Sarutobi smokes his pipe with a look to Iruka and then to the Jonin. This will be wake-up call to them, I approve all nominations, he declares. Iruka stares in disbelief as the Jonin fall out but hangs his head as he leaves. Kurenai sends a clone to find Shino as she heads for Sweet Gluttony to meet Naruto and inform her of the exams. Oi Nai-chan, Anko shouts, dropping down next her. Hey Anko, walk with me, Kurenai says, making their way to Sweet Gluttony. However, they spot Naruto carrying Konohamaru with his friends Miyogi and Yuden behind her. Put me down, Naruni, I'm okay, he shouts. Stop whining Kono, this is punishment for picking a fight with those Sunanin, Naruto says, but sees Kurenai and Anko. Something happened, Gaki, Anko says, moving a dango stick in her mouth. Naruto lets Konohamaru down, but he runs off with his friends. He ran into 3 genin from Suna Sakura, tried to look tough, so did the team, but he got ignored by a retreat, she explains, but leans closer. He was the Ichibi, Naruto notes, and both nod as they arrive at Sweet Gluttony. Naruto led them to the second floor in Mitsuomi's private office, judging by the rings around his eyes. He doesn't sleep and is wholly psychotic, she says, plopping in his chair. Kurenai took a seat on the sofa and Anko fixes herself a drink. Would you go after it during the exams, Kurenai asks. It would be too risky with the exams, but the invasion could prove fruitful, Naruto comments, resting her legs on the desk. Where's the Lucy, Anko asks, plopping next Kurenai. Naruto softly laughs as Hinata opens the door. "Mou, I'm late," Hinata comments. Not by much, and Mitsuomi is meeting with the leader of the rebellion from Kiri, Naruto states. So how do we handle the exams, Hinata asks. Naruto thought for a moment as Hinata takes a seat next to Kurenai, who's running the first round, Naruto asks. Ibiki, I got second round in the Forest of Death, Anko states, and Kurenai sighs. Expect psychological torture, Kurenai says. I'm the queen of hell, Ibiki doesn't scare me, Naruto says, and Hinata giggles. Are we killing fellow Konoha shinobi, Hinata asks. You can with the waivers signs. I heard Iwa and Kumo are participating this year too. I wouldn't put it past the monkey to let it slip about your heritage, Anko comments. Let him, we can kill them without backlash from them, or I can make a few them pawns for later use with my Sharingan, Naruto says, and all 4 laugh. Golden Leaf Hotel. Mei Terumi, leader of the rebel faction of Kiri, gazes out the window of her penthouse room, her green eyes glaring at the supposed greatest village. Mei has ankle-length auburn hair styled into a herringbone pattern at the back, a top knot tied with a dark blue band, and with 4 bangs at the front. 2 bangs are short, with 1 covering her right eye, and 2 are long, crossing each other on her bust, just below her chin. She wears a long-sleeved dark blue dress that falls just below the knees. It seems to be closed at the front with a zipper and is kept open on the front right side from the waist down. The dress only covers up to the upper part of her arms and the underside of her dot underneath. She wears a mesh armor that covers slightly more of her upper body than her dress. She also wears a skirt in the same color as her dress and underneath those, mesh leggings reaching down over her knees. Around her waist, she wears a belt with a pouch attached to the back on the left, along with high-heeled sandals, shin guards reaching up over her knees, dark blue nail polish on her fingers and toes with blue lipstick. It seems Konoha has no need to involve themselves in a civil war, Mitsuomi muses. Mei shifts her gaze to Mitsuomi as he sits at the small table, his legs crosses and his cheek resting on his gloved hand. Mitsuomi was wearing black slacks with harness boots, a blood-red dress shirt with a black tie and suit vest. In so many words, yes, his words were that they were in a non-aggression pact with Kurigakure, and taking sides in the war would breach it, Mei states. Mitsuomi picks up his wine glass with a snort. The old monkey is waiting to pick the bones. Should any bloodline users flee to Hai no Kuni, Konoha will snatch them up and breed them like cattle. I wouldn't put past some to kidnap you and your bodyguards, he muses, glancing to the 5 women in the room. Like I would let him, the shortest says. She has fair skin with silver eyes and neck-length black hair with red tips. She wears long-sleeve light gray shirt with black belted cuffs near the ends of the sleeves, a black pinafore with 2 vertical lines of red stitching that resemble the lacing on a corset. She wears a red skirt with matching black tulle underneath, black stockings and black combat boots with red laces, red trims around the top, and red soles. Ruby's right, we won't let any harm come to Mei-sama, the second says, flicking her blonde hair. She also has lilac eyes and wears a deep collar cream vest worn over a low-cut black shirt. Both are covered by a dark gray shrug with a raised collar, 3/4 sleeves adorned with a single black stripe down the outside of each sleeve, and gold cuffs. A black miniskirt is worn under the cream vest, thigh-high stockings attached to her miniskirt by garter belts on the front and back of each thigh, decorated with 4 golden studs above her knee, and black ankle boots with multiple buckles. Yes, no harm will come to Mei-sama, the third of the group says. She has pale skin with pale blue eyes and long white hair pulled back into an off-center ponytail. She wears a thigh-length strapless dress with a faint color gradation from white to pale blue at the hem. A bell-sleeved bolero with the same color gradation as her dress from shoulder to wrist, lined in red and with a ruffled collar and white boots. The last were a mother-daughter pair with golden eyes and black hair. Girls, why don't you all step out, we should be fine, the mother of the pair says. She wears a black hakama and sandals with white tabi socks, a black shrug with a long right sleeve and a short left sleeve, gold leaf trim adorning the opening on the front. Right, mom, the daughter says. She wears a purple sleeveless catsuit with attached boots that has light purple soles and trim. The catsuit has a high neck with a single short silver zipper alongside matching zippers that run from her thighs to her ankles on the front of the legs. The long white tailcoat is desaturated purple detailing on the chest, sleeves, sides and collar alongside a dark purple detailing on the back. "Right, we'll be outside," the blonde says, as the four leave. Mitsuomi laughs softly but pins his steel blue orbs on Mei. "Since Konoha failed to help, I can for a price, the price Abusa told you about," he says. "We appreciate the aid of Pakura as well, so you would make all of us demons for our souls," Mei says. Mitsuomi grins and shows his teeth in so many words, "But I'm slightly surprised that you would agree so quickly," he says. Akami allowed hundreds to die for being born with a bloodline, and the one actually help is the fucking devil, the MILF shot. Mitsuomi finishes his wine with an amused smile. "Well said, now Mei, I'll make you a demon," he says, slipping off his glove. "Just me," Mei says. "Well, I don't need to make her a demon, don't I, Kali?" Mitsuomi says, and Mei gasps, looking back. Kali reveals large black cat ears with gold piercings on her head. "Yes, Master Lucifer," she croons. "Kali is a very old friend, and Blake is one of my daughters, however. Don't worry, Mei, I will help you, but you will be a very special demon," Mitsuomi says. Special, Mei questions, trying to accept her bodyguard was planted. Mitsuomi unbuttons his left sleeve and rolls it up. "Yes, I will make you one of my 7 stakes. What that means is you will be able to kill Yugura with ease. Hell, you can go toe to toe with Hachibi. That should make up for Kali," he says, causing her to gasp. Mitsuomi cuts open his wrist and his black blood flows into the wine glass. "All you have to do is drink this blood," he says, his wound sizzling closed. 7 stakes, Mei questions, eyeing the black blood. Mitsuomi pours himself another drink. "My wife has her 7, which represent a particular sin of the 7 sins, but my stake encompass all 7, he says, taking a drink. Mei picks up the glass and slowly drinks the blood, but drops the glass with a scream, falling to her knees and clutching her chest. "I've missed you," Kali says, taking a seat in his lap. Mitsuomi smirks as Kali leans in to kiss him. "How's Blake?" he asks, after she pulls back. "She's doing fine, she misses her siblings, but as you can she has made friends," Kali muses and Mitsuomi smiles. "Interesting friends," Mitsuomi muses. Mei clutches the carpet as her skin becomes deathly pale, her nails lengthen, and the blue polish flakes off to reveal black nails. Mei's mouth opens as her canines lengthen as do her ears to resemble long elf ears, her eyes widen as the white becomes black, and her green pupils take an acidy tint. Mitsuomi taps Kali to get up and loosens his tie, pulling it free and ripping open his shirt and vest. Mitsuomi rises as Mei lunges at him with a loud hiss, sending them onto the bed, and she straddles him with a growl. Mei roughly turns Mitsuomi's head, bites down on his neck as black blood sprays into her mouth. Mitsuomi grips the back of Mei's head as Kali was staring with red cheeks. Mei pulls back with a loud moan and blood dripping down her chin. "Ha ha ha, what was that?" she says, looking down at Mitsuomi. "You Mei Terumi are now the stake of lust and a vampire." Mitsuomi, smoking rising from his neck. Konoha Academy Chunin exams RD1. Teammate enters the academy as do the other various teams. "Come on, let us through," a voice shouts on the second floor, but labeled third. Naruto and her team ignore the obvious ruse, heading for the true third floor. Naruto heard Sasuke spout about the Genjutsu, the damned fool, she thought. Kurenai was waiting for them at the door as Team 7 soon follows, but they noted the bruise on Sasuke's face. Diba throws open the door and everyone was hit by Kai, but Naruto and her team ignore it as they head inside. Sasuke Kunino shouts and glomps Sasuke from behind, causing a loud argument to break out. Naruto scans the room and finds Gaara and his siblings, but the Redeed was grinning madly at Naruto. A team from Iwa consisting of all people that Tsuchikage's granddaughter Kuretsuchi. The second was a tall and big young man named Akatsuchi and handsome young man with blue hair named Atsuchi. Each of them wear the standard Iwagakure uniform with Akatsuchi having a yellow bandana. A team from Kumo consisted of Samui, Karui and Amoy, each wearing a variations of the Kumo uniform. "You should keep it down," a voice comments. Naruto spies a young man in glasses with silver hair and a ponytail. His outfit consists of a dark purple shirt with a high collar, a white undershirt, and dark purple pants with a white cloth waistband. "Who are you?" Kiba asks, trying to be tough. The young man adjusts his glasses. "My name is Kabuto, and I speak from experience that these exams are no cakewalk," he says. I am an Uchiha," Sasuke boasts, and Naruto watches as Kabuto give out information about Gaara, Kuretsuchi, Lee and Naruto. The blonde's eyes narrow, but a sly smirk forms on her face, not a typical glutton, but a glutton no less, she thought. The lone Itagakure team attacks Kabuto and Naruto notes their attacks are sound-based. A large puff of smoke fills the room as Ibiki and his other proctors enter. "Alright maggot, sit and down and shut up, round 1 of the Chunin exams begin," he declares. Skipping to round 2 as nothing of note happens. "Alright you maggots, the names is Anko Mitarashi, ultra sexy Takibetsu Jonin, and master of the forest behind me, for the next 5 days, this will be your home," Anko declares. Anko then hold up two scrolls, one is a heaven scroll and the other is a earth scroll. You will need both to enter the tower in the center, she says, and a sadistic grin forms. You can acquire the scroll by any means, killing is allowed, but you must sign these waivers to absolve our various villages. If you don't sign, forfeit now, she adds. Naruko looks through the crowd and her senses pick up a certain snake. I'll play with him inside, she thought, going to sign her waiver and retrieve her team's scroll. Soon the teams took their spots as the various gates and Naruko found the Iwa team was with them. The known Kuro, that girl was called Uzumaki, thinks she's related to the Red Death. Atsuchi asks. Kuritsuchi glances to the blonde with a calculating eye, but her tenant made his opinion known. She's definitely the Kyuubi Jinchuriki, and her scent is similar to that Uzumaki woman. The Yonbi comments. What about the Yondaime? The Red Death was seen in his company, Brya. Kuritsuchi. Brya growls softly, possible, but she seems off, be wary of her, he says. I dunno, Atsuchi, but we'll find out, Kuritsuchi says, rubbing her pink eyes. The buzzer went off and the gates open as all the teams rush into the forest. Naruko and Hinata quickly make seal-less clones and switch them. So what we'll be doing first, Hinata says, and Naruko grins. The Kumo team first, they're cheating, Naruko says, as they shunshin off. Team Samui, as they were dubbed, moved through the forest. Can we really capture the Hyuga girl? Amoy asks. We have to, but it may for naught if the rumors that she was disowned and sealed, Samui states. The team reaches a clearing, but a blackthorn start to surround the clearing. Well, what do we have here? A voice muses. Music. Naruto Shippuden Akatsuki. Naruko and Hinata land near Samui and her team. So what do we have? A Jonin and 2 Chunin in an exam for Genin, Naruko says. Hinata looks over the three of them with a slight smirk. More than likely to capture and have me raped like cattle. To think other women would condone this, she says. We don't, but we can't go against the Reikage, Carrie shouts. Hinata covers her mouth with a giggle. So if the Reikage asked you to spread your legs, you would do with a smile, she says. Karui clenches her fist, but Samui places a hand on her shoulder. Cool it, Samui says and looks to Hinata. Just surrender, Samui adds. Sorry, but I am useless to you, Hinata says and removes the ribbon from her forehead, revealing her caged bird seal. Samui frowns, but her eyes widen as the seal fades, and Hinata's demonic features emerge. That is, if you came after me a few months ago, Hinata sneers. Samui and the others go on guard, but it was useless as Hinata appears inches from Karui with a palm strike to the chest. Harry spews blood from her mouth and drops to her knees with a blank look on her face. Harry? Amoy shouts, drawing his sword, but Hinata dodges and appears next to Naruko. Amoy charges them as Samui draws her sword. Bastard, she hisses. Naruko summons her katana from a seal as Hinata smirks. I killed your friend with a single blow. What chance do you two have? Hinata says. Samui charges Naruko, but she blocks her strike as Amoy charges Hinata, dodging the lollipop user with ease. Were you fucking her? You still can? She's still warm, Hinata sneers, and Amoy grows angrier. Bitch, Amoy shouts, swinging, but again Hinata dodges. Naruko holds off Samui's blade with her own. You seem like a good person, but you follow a greedy leader. He failed with Hina-chan as a child, and now he tries again only for all of you to die, she says. Amoy screams, as Hinata crushes his wrist. Amoy drops his sword and tries a left mid-kick, but Hinata blocks with her forearm, snapping the leg in half. Amoy falls to the ground and screams in agony. Hinata silences him by crushing his head. Fucking loud, she says. Amoy. Samui shouts, but Naruko back jumps and shoots forward. Itoryu. 100 stings, Naruko says, appearing behind Samui. 100 shallow and ugly gashes appear on Samui's body as she falls to her knees with wide eyes. Naruko dispels her sword and leans down to Samui's ear. I will let you live today, however. If you want to blame someone for this, blame your greedy lust for power, Reikage, she croons. Naruko and Hinata vanish as Samui stares blankly at the corpses of Amoy and Carrie. Song ends. Jonin Lounge. Mitsuomi makes his way to the Jonin Lounge after Saratobi granted him the rank of Takebetsu Jonin, but limited to within the village due to his condition. Mitsuomi wears a gray 3/4 length hooded leather jacket with blue interior lining. A long-sleeve white Henley shirt with black gloves, a pair of black faded jeans and black military boots, his hit I-8 secured to his belt. Mitsuomi takes a drag off his cigarette as he enters the lounge. Most paid him no mind as Kurenai waves. However, one Jonin from Kumo was staring intently, her dark blue eyes flickering in shock. She has blonde hair and wears a short-sleeved black and purple blouse and black pants, both of which had a design similar to clouds on them, purple fingerless gloves and a chain of blue beads wound around her bandaged left hand. Matatabi, who is this guy and why are you scared by him? The woman thought, and a blue two-tailed cat whines. Yujito, you need to meet with him and tell him I had no choice, Matatabi says and Yujito gasps. Mitsuomi takes a seat next to Kurenai, but winks at Yujito. Hellcat, he thought. No choice in what? Yujito asks. Matatabi sighs softly with a look to Mitsuomi from Yujito's eyes. Long ago when I was young I served in hell as guardian of the circle of lust, she starts and Yujito gasps. My siblings served faithfully, but one day my siblings decided to abandon hell and return to earth, but we incurred the wrath of the devil himself. Lucifer, the man sitting over there, Matatabi finishes. Yujito's breath hitches and she glances to Mitsuomi, but he winks again. How can the devil be here, she thought. Despite his power severely limited, he can wander to and fro with ease, Matatabi explains. Yujito keep her gaze off of Mitsuomi, but sense of dread went up her spine. Samui, stay alive, she thought. Naruko and Hinata land on branches as below them were Team 7 and by the looks losing very badly. Hina-chan, find Kabuto and bring him to me, kill his team if you have to, she says. Hinata giggles and pulls Naruko into a tongue-filled kiss. By your leave, milady, she says and shunshuns off. Kiba was laid out with Akamaru trying to revive him as Sakura was pitifully trying to watch over him. Sasuke was fighting a Kusanin, but she revealed herself as Orochimaru after being set on fire. Naruko squats down to watch closer as Orochimaru extends his neck and bites Sasuke on the shoulder. Sasuke collapses screaming as Orochimaru sinks into the tree. Seek me if you desire, power echoes on the wind. Naruko decides to follow Orochimaru to test his mettle, soon finding him trying to mock her lust. Anko was playing her part masterfully, holding where her curse mark used to be and faking the pain. Music. Claymore Astiama no Akite. Fukuku, did you think changing your clothes would make you strong enough to face me? Orochimaru sneers. Anko glares at Orochimaru, but internally her mouth would spilt from the grin on her face. Orochimaru moves closer but halts in his tracks as a cold shiver went up his spine. Nani? He thought. Anko-chan, why are fooling this lecherous, Naka voice comments. Orochimaru looks around for the source as Anko rises to her feet with a titter. Gomen, I wanted to see his face go from arrogance to despair, she says, grinning. Orochimaru's eyes narrow as Anko seems perfectly fine despite him calling on her seal. What's wrong, not winning as easily as you thought, sinner, the voice says. Naruko emerges from the shadows behind Orochimaru, her whiskers now visible and dark with her blue eyes glowing. Fukuku, the Kyuubi child, Orochimaru says, turning to face Naruko. The blonde demoness only stares, but Orochimaru jerks as Naruko was lifting him off the ground by his throat. It is a surreal feeling watching someone's expression of hope fall into despair, she sneers, revealing her tails and ears. Orochimaru's eyes widen in shock. Did you devour that child's soul, Kyuubi? He struggles out. Think the other way around, Kyuubi no longer exists, his power is now mine, Naruko sneers, tighten her grip. Orochimaru turns to mud, but Naruko only laughs. Consider it a mercy, snake, next time I will not be so merciful, she shouts. Anko giggles as she approaches Naruko. He'll call it a fluke, she says, but Naruko pulls her closer for a deep kiss. Let him, it'll give him a pleasing face once he dies, Naruko croons, after pulling away. Hinata appears on the branch behind them with Kabuto perplexing Anko, but Naruko laughs. The little traitor, Naruko says, walking towards them. Hinata grips Kabuto's shoulder to wake him, and his eyes widen as Naruko was staring back. Hello, Kabuto-san, or shall I say Orochimaru's spy, she says, squatting to his kneeling level. Spy? Anko shouts and Naruko nods, pulling off Kabuto's glasses. Yes, and a very good one because he has no sense of self, but he reeks of gluttony, Naruko says. Kabuto tries to play off his blown cover, but Naruko grips his cheeks. You can deny it all you want, but no longer are you his spy but mine, she says, activating her Mangekyou Sharingan and digging her nails in Kabuto's throat. Naruko pumps her demonic power into Kabuto's body and black veins spread as a single spiral horn emerges from his forehead and a silver tail emerge from his rear with 6 barbs on the end. Naruko releases her grip on Kabuto and he rises into a half bow. May I have my glasses back, Naruko-sama, he says. Of course, Kabuto, now return to your duties as Orochimaru's spy and find everything he knows to quell your gluttony, Naruko orders. Kabuto's tail sways happily as he bows. You are most generous, Naruko-sama, excuse me, he says and shunshuns away. Excellent, I have taken one if not the greatest spy of Orochimaru and made him my gluttony, now let's head to the tower and wait, Naruko says, and all three vanish. Song ends. Central Tower, Forest of Death. Yujito closes the door of Samui's room after checking on the blonde to inform the Raikage of Kari and Amoi's deaths. Yujito wipes her tears but is suddenly pulled into an empty hall and pinned to a wall. Yujito gasps as Mitsuomi was staring back. Hello, kitty, catty purrs. Let me go, Yujito shouts, struggling, but Mitsuomi keeps her pinned. Mitsuomi leans closer and locks eyes with her. I don't want to speak with you, sheep, I want the deserter, he hisses, his soulless eyes coming to bear. Yujito's eyes widen in horror, but they slowly change to a yellow and green pupil-less eyes. Lord Lucifer, I apologize for leaving my post, but I was forced by my brothers and sister to leave Hell, Matatabi says. Oh really, the fierce Hellcat of the Circle of Lust is forced by her siblings to abandon her post, as Demon Lord Mitsuomi says and leans closer. Your absence allowed my stakes of lust and envy to turn against me, wasted my time to choose new lords, and above all took one of my fuck buddies away from me, he hissed. I'm sorry, Lord Lucifer, I was afraid of my brothers. Even Kakuo didn't want to leave, but we were powerless against Gyuki and Kurama's combined might, Matatabi explains. Mitsuomi pulls back slightly but keep his void-like eyes on her, so how much would give to get back in my good graces, he says. Everything, my host included, Matatabi says, and Mitsuomi grins, leaning in near Yujito's lips. Mitsuomi snakes an arm around Yujito's body. You would destroy her kind soul to save yourself, he says. Yes, Yujito is a feeble human subservient to that musclehead, and his brother, Matatabi hisses. Mitsuomi lifts Yujito's chin with a grin on his face. Then we have a deal, my stake of envy, he croons. Why not the stake of lust, Matatabi asks, but Mitsuomi glares and the Bakaneko freezes. Punishment for your sins, Mitsuomi says, vanishing with her. 5 days later, Naruto and her team gather with the other genin standing on the catwalk as the preliminaries were underway. Kabuto dropped out per his master and true master's order, while Sasuke won his match, but barely, and absconded by Kakashi soon after. Tamari defeated Tenten and let the girl land on the tip off her fan, delighting the demons in attendance. Shino defeated Zaku and crippled the boy's arms, while Shikamaru pretended to barely beat a girl called Kin. Sakura and Ino's match ended in a double knockout, while Kiba lost to Akatsuchi, and much to Naruto's delight. The next match is Naruto Uzumaki vs Atsuchi, Hate says, with a few coughs. Naruto makes her way down to the arena floor as Atsuchi makes his way from the opposite side. Naruto rolls up the sleeves of her trench coat and slips on a pair of black gloves. I wonder how much I should show, she thought. Ready, Hajime, Hate declares. Naruto takes a loose stance as Atsuchi stares. Tell me, are you related to the Yellow Flash, he asks. Sarutobi silently gulps and glances to Naruto, but she stood impassive. What gave you that deduction, Naruto asks, but Atsuchi tilts his head. You have blonde hair and blue eyes, Atsuchi asks. Naruto points to the now awake Ino. She has blonde hair and blue eyes, she could be the Yellow Flash's daughter, she notes. Atsuchi draws 2 kunai with a crazed smile on his face. No, I think you are, he says and rushes forward. Naruto backpedals and dodges Atsuchi's lashes. Again, I ask, what gives you this conclusion, she asks, bring her own kunai into action. Your name is Uzumaki, and the only Uzumaki in Konoha was the Red Death Kushina Uzumaki, and she was always in the company of the Yellow Flash, Atsuchi says, dodging Naruto's swipe. Sarutobi was getting more nervous by the second, as several of the jonin were starting to connect the dots. Well, you're wrong, the Sandaime told me I was given the name Uzumaki to honor Kushina Uzumaki, Naruto says. Atsuchi slams his palms into the ground to create several earthen spikes, but Naruto back jumps, but closes the gap with Shunshin, shocking the Sandaime and a few jonin. Naruto sends Futon to her fingers and rakes them across Atsuchi's face, causing blood to spew from his face. Ah, Atsuchi cries, clutching his face, the blood runs down his face. Naruto flicks the blood off her glove. You should surrender, she says. Atsuchi glares through his blood-stained face. Fuck you, bitch, he shouts. Naruto sighs and twirls her kunai and channels Futon to it. Fine then, goodbye, she says, sending the kunai forward. Everyone gasps as the kunai embeds deeply into Atsuchi's chest and he gasps out his last breaths, dropping to his knees and face down. Winner by death, Naruto Uzumaki, Hate states. Sarutobi was trying to hide his shock as Naruto returns to her team. How can she be this powerful? That was Futon. I need to contact Jiraiya to check the seals, he thought. Kuretsuchi glances to Naruto, but back to the body. Atsuchi, seems this girl is dangerous, she thought. Naruto, you've changed a lot, Kakashi says, and Naruto smiles at him. I learned the secret of the Kage Bunshin and Kurenai-sensei is very good teacher, Naruto explains. Hinata vs Neji. Neji makes his way down the arena floor as Hinata does the same, attempting to play the part of her former self. However, the fact of crushing Neji was too hard to hold back. I sorta wish this was in the finals. I would love to see my ex-father and sister's reaction, Hinata thought. Let the match begin, Hate declares. Neji sneers at Hinata as she looks downcast. You should withdraw, Hinata-sama. No, Hinata, as you are no longer a part of our illustrious clan, he says. Hinata's hair shadows her eyes. You know, Neji, that may have hurt a few months, but thanks to Nuri-chan and Mitsuomi-kun, Kurenai-sensei and Anko-sensei, I have become a whole new shinobi, she says, and raises her hands into the ram sign. Kai, she adds. Hinata's new look emerges minus her demon features, shocking a great many in the arena hall. So you've become nothing more than a whore with this manner of dress, Neji shot. Hinata slips on pair of fingerless gloves. Believe what you want to, she says, activating her Byakugan, but Neji notices it has less ridges. You will fall trash, Neji sneers, activating his Byakugan and both shifting into their gentle fist stances. Hinata makes the first move as she shoots forward with a palm strike, but Neji blocks cleanly and she dodges his counter strikes with her own, wisps of chakra flaring with each strike. Hinata skids back enough for a slight gap in their stances, and Neji narrowly dodges a swipe to the gut, both breaking back for a gap between them. Hinata-chan is keep up for now, Lee comments. Guy glances to Kurenai as the red-eye Kunoichi was smiling. Hinata-san has an unyouthful manner of dress, he says. Anko broke her outer shell. Hinata has more confidence now being away from the Hyuga clan. I almost wanna thank Hiashi-sama for disowning her. Kurenai replies, hiding her venom for Hiashi. Niji makes the first move in this exchange, but Hinata leaves an opening, the fool he thought, aiming for Hinata's chest. However, everyone except Naruto, Anko and Kurenai gasp as Hinata dodges the strike and actually maneuvers behind Niji, sending a palm strike to his back and staggering him forward. How? Niji thought, glaring at Hinata. The envy allows a slight smirk to grace her lips. What wrong, Niji? I gave you an opening and you failed to capitalize, Hinata says. Impossible, she deliberately gave an opening to catch Niji, Guy thought. Naruto glances to Sarutobi as the older man was trying to hide his shock. Once Hina-chan crushes Niji, I bet he'll run to Hiashi, she thought. A trickle of blood runs down Niji's chin and he wipes it off, a fluke, he thought. Maybe you should forfeit, Niji, one strike and you looking so pathetic, Hinata comments, enraging Niji. The supposed genius of the Hyuga shoots forward with a precise strike, but Hinata dodges evenly and cleanly. How? Niji thought. She's moving very gracefully, Kakashi says, and Kurenai smiles. Most Hyuga have Adotan affinities, but Hinata possesses Suiton affinity, so I have her taking up ballet to more flexible and not be rooted in place, Kurenai explains. Hinata dances just beyond Niji's strike and sending in her own counters for good measure. How about I end this Hinata says, maneuvering through Niji's guard with a palm to the chest. Niji coughs up blood as he staggers back with shocked eyes, but quickly shifts into anger. How can this possible? Niji shouts. Hinata shoot forward into a spin kick, snapping Niji's left arm from the force. Niji's arm dangles as Guy and Lee were in shock, as were most of those present. Niji howls, dropping to his knees and clutching the broken arm. Hinata knees Niji in the nose and sends him on his back with a smirk on her face. How does it feel, Niji? Nai-san, does it hurt? She sneers. Kurenai, why would Hinata be so brutal? Guy shouts. Kurenai glances to Guy with a look. As I said, Anko broke Hinata outer shell, and inside was a person persecuted for something not of her control, she says, and points to Niji. Maybe she taking 13 years pain out of him, she adds. Hinata looks down at Niji as he glares. How? Was she toying with me from the start, he thought. It seems fate was not on your side, Hinata says, and rests her boot on Niji's right arm. Here, I'll give you a matching set, she says, crushing Niji's right arm. Niji wails in agony as Hinata strolls off. Proctor, my opponent can no longer fight, I win, she croons. Winner, Hinata hates states. The medical team rushes in to help Niji as Guy leaps down to check on his student. Hinata makes her way back up, but Lee gets her path. How could you be so cruel to Niji, he says. Hinata scoffs and grabs Lee to pull him closer. Stay out of this or I'll fucking kill you, she hisses, pushing him back and walking to her team. That felt cathartic, shame my father and sister didn't get to see it, Hinata muses, and Naruto giggles. Kuritsuchi was given a free pass due to the odd numbers as Dosu defeats Choji. The next and final match was Lee vs Gaara, and needless to say Naruto was impressed by Lee's speed, but his slight against Hinata would not go unpunished. Lee used the 8 inner gates to actually force Gaara's hand, shocking many that Lee was capable of such skill. However, it proved futile as Gaara crushed Lee's left leg and arm, but Shikamaru used his powers enough to delay Guy. Sabaku Sozo, Gaara says, crushing Lee's head with a splatter of blood. The demons in attendance play their parts of shocked and concerned Konoha shinobi. Guy arrives only to gasp in horror as Lee's corpse collapses on the arena floor. Gaara looks up to Guy with a demonic grin on his face, enraging the older man and causing Kakashi, Asuma, Hayate and a few Anbu to stop him for killing Gaara. The preliminaries for the Chunin exams finals are now complete. Selections for the finals in 1 month will be chosen by Hokage-sama. Everyone is dismissed, Anko says, faking a solemn tone. Everyone starts to file of the arena, but Sarutobi approaches teammate. Hinata, what you did to Niji, your father will not stand idle, he says. I am sure he will, Hokage-sama, but tell me if the situation was reserved, would this conversation even take place? Hinata comments, as Kurenai and Anko shuntion them back to the village. I need to get Jiraiya back here immediately to reinforce Naruto's seals and place several on Hinata as well, Sarutobi thought, and vanishing. True to Sarutobi's word, Hinata and Naruto were heading to the Hokage tower to listen to Hiashi whine and curse. The pair arrive with their Anbu escort, and Hiashi was glaring daggers at Hinata as the Anbu leaves. Hello father, Hinata says, sarcastically. Hiashi was about to bolt off the sofa, but Sarutobi raises his hand. Cooler heads need to prevail, Sarutobi says. Hokage-sama, I want this girl stripped of her genin status and exiled from Konoha, Hiashi snaps. Naruto strokes her right cheek with her ponytail as Hinata scoffs. Again, why is this even an issue? If the circumstances were reversed, you would be ecstatic that both my arms were broken, Hinata comments. Hiashi holds back a growl and clenches his fist. The little bitch is right, but I need to save face, he thought. How about this? I will ask Mitsuomi-kun to pay for all of Niji's medical treatment and compensate you again, Hiashi-sama, for Hinata's behavior, Naruto states. Hiashi's eyes widen a slight fraction, but a smirk forms. Seems you have learned proper manners, commoner. I'll accept, however, he says and makes a single sign. Hinata screams and clutches her head as she fakes the caged seal, dropping to her knees in fake agony. Hiashi, enough, Sarutobi shouts. Hiashi cuts the seal with a sneer as Hinata languishes on the floor. Let that be lesson for you, bitch, he hisses, leaving. Naruko helps Hinata on sofa as Sarutobi fakes his concern. I am sorry about that, he says. It's alright, Gigi, Naruko says, hiding her disdain. Hinata stretches to lay on the sofa as Naruko strokes her hair. I'll be okay, Naru-chan, Hinata say, faking her weakness. Naruko turns to Sarutobi. Gigi, I hate to change the subject, but I would like to train outside the village for the next month until the final, she says. Sarutobi freezes but maintains his calm. No, I need her to stay, he thought, but sighs. Where would you go, he asks. Spring Snow Country. Mitsuomi has to return for business. I would to go with Hinata and an Anbu escort, Naruko explains. Naruko, I was going to have my student Jiraiya train you during the month, Sarutobi states, and Naruko puffs her cheeks, but smiles. Have him meet us there. Mitsuomi told me he writes the Icha Icha books and is looking to make a movie. Koyuki-sama is an actress, Naruko suggests. Sarutobi's eyes widen a fraction of this prospect. Alright, I will contact him. I'll have Nico accompany you, he says. Thank you so much, Gigi, Naruko says and helps Hinata off the sofa, excusing themselves. Sarutobi watches them close the door and sighs heavily. Change of plans. You will go with them to Spring and do the seals. Their bodies also search Spring for anything vital, he says. Jiraiya steps through the window with a nod. I heard she was assaulted sexually. Doesn't look it, he says. Jiraiya wears a green short shirt, kimono and matching pants, under which he wore mesh armor that is visible at his wrists and ankles. He also wore hand guards, a black belt, traditional Japanese wooden sandals and a red haori with 2 yellow circles on each side. She is putting a front. This could affect her in the long run. Put a memory alteration seal as well to block that event, Sarutobi say, and Jiraiya nods. Got it, sensei, Jiraiya says, stepping out the window. Namika's estate. Mitsuomi was laying on the sofa in his faded jeans and white henley, his arms folded and a ball cap over his face. Mitsuomi feels tiny movements on his chest and arms, lifting his cap, and his eyes met an albino tarantula with purple eyes. The tarantula lifts one of its legs and taps Mitsuomi outstretched finger. She sent you to enforce her anger, he says, and it taps twice. She does have a right to be angry. I did keep this from her for a reason, a very good one. As for all intents and purposes, she is dead to this place, Mitsuomi says, rubbing the tarantula's white hairs. Mitsuomi senses Naruko approaching and taps the tarantula. You should go and tell her we will be in Spring in a few days, he says, and the tarantula disappears in a puff of smoke. The door opens as Naruko and Hinata enter. How did it go, Mitsuomi asks. Not bad, but you have to pay for Niji's bills and Hiashi to shut up, but we can go to Spring with an Anbu escort. However, the monkey wants the perv to come as well, Naruko explains. Probably to check those seals, but too bad they are dummy seals now, even the 8 trigram seal, Mitsuomi says, sitting up. We're going pack, Naruko says, as Mitsuomi slips on his boots and coat. Mitsuomi leaves the house and heads for Sweet Gluttony. Awaiting him at the doors was Sachiko. Hello, Mitsuomi-kun, Sachiko greets. Mitsuomi fishes the keys from his pocket. Hello, Sachiko-san, I'm glad you came. I have some information on Yukimaru Zabatsu, he says, opening and holding the door. I tracked down a few leads, but they were dummy leads. However, I have another lead to check when I go to Spring during the month, Mitsuomi says. You're leaving, Sachiko says, pouting. Mitsuomi rolls his eyes as he's standing at the bar, like an abused puppy, he thought. Yes, but only for about 2 weeks. I'll have my faithful bloodhound track down any leads on Yukimaru Zabatsu, Mitsuomi says. Thanks, Kiryu-kun, Sachiko says, heading for the door. It opens as Naruko and Hinata enter, but Sachiko sneers at the blonde. Why do you oblige her so much, Naruko asks, after Sachiko was gone. Why not, Mitsuomi counters, as they leave. Anbu Nico was waiting for them at main gate. Hokage-sama said Jiraiya-sama will meet us in Spring, she notes. The 3 nod as the 4 take off at the Ishinobi's pace. We'll head to my shipping company in the capital. From there I can take us to Spring, Mitsuomi states. How can you do that, Nico asks, and Mitsuomi smiles with a mouthing of secret. A few hours later the foursome reach Mitsuomi's shipping company. I'll need to grab some things. Nico-san, can you follow me, Mitsuomi says. Nico obliges as Naruko and Hinata giggle as they pair head to Mitsuomi's office. Kiryu Manor, Spring Country. The 4 appear in the foyer of a huge mansion with numerous windows and a staircase in front and double doors behind. Mitsuomi claps his hands and several maids appear for their bags and Yugao. Get her cleaned up and a place to sleep, he says, as they all bow. Mitsuomi heads for the stairs, but suddenly thick webs surround his neck, lifting him up and ensnaring his legs. Naruko and Hinata gasps as horse eyes albino tarantula drops down from the ceiling in front of the stairs. Naru-chan, you have grown into a beautiful young woman, a voice praises and Naruko gasps. Hinata looks to the top of stairs and a woman stood with her arms folded, her raven hair flowing down her back, but the shocking part were her two Sharingan eyes and 6 smaller eyes above them. "It can't be me, Makoto-Kasan," Naruko sputters out. Makoto was wearing a form-fitting black dress with a low backside, slits to her waist and no straps with a pair of heeled boots. "Yes, Neri-chan," Makoto says, walking down the steps. A few tears leak from Naruko's blue orbs, but they slowly shift into red slits as her gaze drifts to Mitsuomi. "Why did you not tell me?" She hisses, 9 black chains emerging from her back. "That's how he is," Makoto says, running her gloved hand along the tarantula. Mitsuomi looks down at his wife. It would not have changed anything. Sasuke would turn out as he did even if Makoto was there. Sarutobi and his cronies would not let her live, they would have had her killed to mold Sasuke as they saw fit, he says. "Even so I could have had a mother," Naruko shouts, firing the chains through his body. Black blood sprays out of his body as the webbing drops him. "Was that necessary?" Mitsuomi mutters. Makoto pulls Naruko into a hug. "Yes," they curtly reply. "Shock adorns my face as my father lay in a pool of his blood after my mother and grandmother attacked him for lying about said grandmother," a voice comments. Naruko looks up this time to see a young man or girl with a magenta hair to their jaw. Golden eyes behind a pair of glasses, dressed in a grey long-sleeve shirt underneath a white sleeveless top, as well as a pair of dark pants and short boots. "Read the mood, Gother," Mitsuomi says, trying to get up, but the tarantula plops on him. "Thank you, Alpha," Makoto says, giggling. Alpha lifts Mitsuomi onto its back as Gother comes down the stairs as Hinata opens the door for Alpha. "Makoto-Kasan, how are you alive?" Naruko says, and Makoto kisses her forehead. "Follow me, Gother-kun, can you get us some tea?" Makoto says, leading Naruko and Hinata outside to a covered patio. "Take a seat, and I must say, Hinata-chan, you look more like Hitomi every day," Makoto states. "Thank you, Makoto-san," Hinata says. Gother arrives with a pitcher of tea and 4 glasses. "Thank you, Gother-kun," Makoto says and clears her throat. "You know about the Uchiha massacre?" she starts and both nod. "What you don't know is that the clan was planning a coup d'etat that could have started another shinobi war. Itachi was tasked by Sarutobi and his cronies to kill the clan, but only sparing Sasuke and myself. However, someone in a mask decided to aid Itachi, and together they slaughtered the clan," Makoto says and touches her chest. "Fugaku used me as shield, and I was stabbed. Itachi thought I died, but I was still clinging to life. However, all the death and misery attracted a certain devil, and he saved me, turning me into a Tsuchigumo," Makoto adds. Makoto then takes Naruko's hand. "I wanted to go back so badly, and I did. However, I saw you still believed in Sarutobi's lies," she says, a tear running down her cheek. "The monkey had you wrapped around his finger. Even if Makoto returned, you would not believe her words," Mitsuomi says, walking up and pulling web from his hair. Naruko rises from her seat and slaps Mitsuomi in the face. "I am still mad at you," she says, but hugs him. "But thank you for giving me back one of my mother," she whispers. "Father has avoided mother's wrath once again," Gother comments, after drinking some tea. Hinata furrows her brow at Gother. "Father and mother?" she queries. Gother strikes a pose. "I am Gother, the 3rd child and 2nd son of Lucifer," he says, twinkling. "I thought you only had Veen and Satania," Hinata states. Naruko places her glass down. "He has several children too, rebelled and are locked in Dis Meliodas doesn't leave the circle of anger much, and Esdeath stays in the 9th," Naruko explains. "Rebelled?" Hinata asks and Mitsuomi snorts. "Belial and Raffi decided letting the 9 Biju leave was a sign of weakness. Esterasa was a mama's boy to Belial, and Mammon chose to rebel despite his baby sister," Mitsuomi explains. "Enough about that, Makoto. Jiraiya is coming to spring. I need detail on him at all times. The monkey is fishing," Mitsuomi adds, seriously, and Makoto nods. 3 days later, Koyuki Kazuhana, the daimyo of Yukiharu, stares blankly at the dancing form of Jiraiya. To her left were Naruko, Hinata and Yuga or Nico publicly. Koyuki has long black hair with bangs that sweep on each side of her face and light blue colored eyes. She wears a regal kimono with a pink haori. Jiraiya finishes his stick as Koyuki stares. "I'll let you stay in Yuki for 2 weeks, and as for you horrid smut, I will decline," she declares, and Jiraiya frowns. "That is suitable, Koyuki-chan, and my sensei would to offer an alliance between our nations." Jiraiya. Koyuki stares at the sage with contempt. "It is Koyuki-sama, not Koyuki-chan. As for alliance, I will bring it up with my council," she states, dismissing him. Jiraiya frowns again with Naruko and her group in tow. "Gaki, can't your husband talk to her?" he whispers, as the doors closed. "I can talk to him now, Iro-sen, what will you teach me? I have nearly 3 weeks until the Chunin finals," Naruko says. Jiraiya frowns for a 3rd time at Naruko's nickname for him. "I can teach you to summon, and the Yondame's signature I created the Rasengan," he proudly says. Naruko rolls her eyes at this pervert. "My father taught you, fool," she thought. "I can summon already." Mitsuomi-kun found a summon scroll in his travels, Naruko says, and Jiraiya freezes and looks back. "For what summon animal?" Jiraiya says and Naruko grins. "Foxes," Naruko says, and the sage pales slightly. I see, I'll let sensei know," Jiraiya says and falls silent as the group reaches the manor. This bad foxes could be connected to the Kyuubi, he thought. Naruto has the fox-tride influence in any way, Jiraiya asks. Naruto frowns slightly with flickering eyes, just taunting mostly to break my spirit, after MIR rape it stepped up its taunting, she replies. Jiraiya rubs his chin in fake concern. I see, can I inspect the seal, he asks, glancing to Hinata as she was sparring with Nico. Naruto slowly nods and lifts her sweater. Fool, you can't tell that this seal is a perfect fake, she thought. Everything seems in working order, I can tighten the seal more to stop its voice, Jiraiya asks, but Naruto shakes her head. I can handle it now, show me the Rasengan, Naruto states. Flashback city of Dis. The throne of room inside Dis was abuzz as the reception for their lord and his queen's wedding was beginning. The 7 stakes and Pakura were in attendance as well, all of Lucifer's children except 2. The first were the oldest sons and daughter of Meliodas, Gother and Esdeath. Meliodas was the shortest of his siblings but is relatively muscular, possessing an array of well-developed abdominal muscles. He wears an ordinary clean white button front shirt and a black sleeveless vest on top with a loosely worn tie and black boots. He also has dark blue eyes and unruly black blonde hair. Esdeath was second tallest of her siblings and was sadist like her father and often declared that her father was the only man who would ever touch her, sans her twin brother Meliodas. Esdeath has long light blue hair to her knees and cobalt eyes, wearing a white military dress with a blue scarf around her neck. She wear a white-black military cap on her head and thigh-length white-heeled boots. Father should have let me cook, Meliodas comments, drinking a pitcher of beer. Esdeath scoffs with a glance to a dress-wearing Gother. You have no sense of taste, brother, even Elizabeth doesn't let you cook in your home, she comments. Meliodas frowns and runs under the dress of his wife Elizabeth. Comfort me, my sister is mean, he mumbles. Elizabeth has long silver hair to her waist and some covers her right eye. It's okay, she says, in a soft voice. Brother is weak-willed to insults, Gother says. Esdeath stares at her younger brother. Maybe, but why are you wearing a dress, she asks. Gother curtsies with a twinkle. I look pretty in it, he says, and Esdeath face palms. The throne room door opens as Veen and Satania enter, followed by their father and their new queen. Lucifer wore a white military dress suit with black gloves and boots, his arm linked with Naruto. The new queen of hell wore her blonde hair free and a veil on her head. Her dress was short in the front, showing her white stockings and white-heeled boots. Her waist and train resembled feathers and pseudo-wings on her lower back with white gloves. Yuna's dress from FFX. Thank you all coming, Lucifer declares. Naruto waves to them all as they take their places in front of their thrones. As my husband said, thank you for coming, this a day I dreamed of since I was child. Despite the life I lived in Konoha, however, thanks to their arrogance, I have found a lifetime worth of love from Lucifer, Naruto says, and a rueful look forms, causing Lucifer to kiss her hand. The only regret I have is that my birth parents and my second mother Mikoto could not be here to see this day, Naruto adds. Then flashback, Mikoto holds back her tears as she leans into Mitsuomi. Sorry I kept her from you, he says. Mikoto sniffles in his chest. It was best at the time, however no longer will I be away from Naru, she says. Mitsuomi strokes her raven hair. This I know, and I have a way to get you back into Konoha legally, he says. How? Officially I am dead, Mikoto asks. Mitsuomi grins wide and his eyes gleam. Yes, officially Mikoto Uchiha is dead, but unofficially Mikoto Uchiha is on an undercover mission for Achika Yamanori, he notes, and Mikoto gasps. I had Achika put aside a secret mission scroll for me in case I need to disappear for a while. I can attach your name instead of mine. Those fools in Konoha would not dare go against the niece of their daimyo. Achika can spin a tale that you got barely out of the massacre via summon, but languished in a coma for a few years, but awoke to find you were declared dead and left the capital finding yourself in Snow Country, Mitsuomi explains. Mikoto titters as 4 black red-haired spider legs emerge from her back. You truly amaze me, Millard, she says, her 8 eyes glowing. Junin finals. Naruto stood with the other Genin as Sarutobi was going on and on about the exams. Geez, she thought. Naruto was now wearing an outfit like Esdeath, but minus the scarf and hat, her trench coat draped on her shoulders. Naruto swaps out the thigh-high boots for calf-length, low-heel boots and black tights under the dress. Hinata was next to her and showing off her new look, shocking many in the crowd. Sasuke has yet to arrive, but his opponent was Gaara, their opponents not officially given until today. Naruto was going to face Kuretsuchi and Hinata was facing Kankuro. You know his excuse was we were out of the village, Naruto whispers and Hinata scoffs. Genma soon calls for the Genin to leave except for Kuretsuchi and Naruto as she gives her coat to Hinata. But you also say I am the Yellow Flash's child, Naruto asks, slipping on white gloves. Kuretsuchi pulls on her black gloves with a scoff. What does it matter, she counters. Genma raises his hand, but suddenly everything freezes, causing Kuretsuchi to gasp and look around. It's a space-time barrier, I wanted us to talk for a quick moment, Naruto says, holding a ram sign. Kuretsuchi's pink eyes narrow as the blonde smiles. Talk about what, she says, drawing a kunai in a reverse grip. Well, I wanted to talk about how you are treated, Naruto says, and a grin forms, as a Jinchuriki, she adds. Kuritsuchi's breath hitches and her eyes were wide. How did you know that? She shouts. One Jinchuriki can sense another, the Ichibi is here as well, and the Nibi Naruto comments. Kuritsuchi stares with narrow eyes, but Brya growls, something is wrong, now that we're closer I don't sense Kurama, but simply his power he says, and Kuritsuchi furrows her brow. Naruko reveals her fox ears and tails, I bet the dragon is wondering about Kurama she says, flaring her demonic power. Kuritsuchi's eyes widen as Naruko's horns emerge and her black wings, her body erupting with a purple aura. Brya roars in shock, no that power. He roars. Kuritsuchi gasps but can't react as Naruko touches her head, suddenly finding themselves in a huge cave. Gold and jewels litter the floor in huge piles, but on the largest gold hoard was a large chained dragon. His skin is a mix between steel gray and ash black, with a crimson underbelly and several spikes and scales adorning his fearsome visage. He also has yellow eyes with black pupils and sharp claws with a small hairy beard on his lower jaw. Hello Brya, Naruko says. Brya glares at Naruko with a hiss, how do you have that power, he roars. I have become his wife, Naruko says. Brya raises his head, then he sent you to collect us for our desertion, he says. Desertion? Kuritsuchi says. Brya looks down at his jailer, long before this age of shinobi was the sage of six paths our creator, but soon after our birth, he came, Brya hisses. He? Kuritsuchi questions and Brya's gaze meets Naruko. The prince of lies, the true king of despair, Lucifer, he took to us to hell to rule his 9 circles, Brya explains. Yet all of you decided to abandon that charge and flee like cowards, Naruko shot. Brya's roar echoes through the cave, YESSSS. Kurama grew tired of ruling a realm of ice and death and decided to leave this forced burden, while Lucifer dealt with the challenges for his throne, we all left hell and returned to our father's realm, he roars. Kuritsuchi was shell-shocked at Byurg's tale, hell is real, she asks. It is, as is heaven. Your Biju and his 8 siblings chose to return here and become the weapons they are today. They were the original 9 demon lords, and Brya ruled the circle of greed, a golden horde more majestic than the one he covets now, Naruko explains. Yes, more gold that this world ever had, but I wanted more and freedom that my father gave us, that the seducer took from us, Brya roars. Yet here you are as a weapon for Iwa, Naruko says, amused. Brya roars again with his eyes on Kuritsuchi, your point, unlike my previous host, her skill is subpar despite her Yoten Kekkei Genkai, he hisses. I'm still young, Rashi had your power for years, Kuritsuchi defends and Naruko claps, yes Rashi, I remember him in the circle of violence, she says. Now Kuritsuchi, tell me, how are you treated, Naruko asks. Kuritsuchi stares at the blonde, but more so into her slitted blue orbs, like a weapon, despite my gramps being Tsuchikage, and my uncle Hellhan is treated better me, they berate me for not using his power, but I don't need it to be strong, she says. Strong you, ha 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 ha, I am Brya and I am strong, Brya roars, slamming his front claws. Brya rushes Naruko, but her chains erupt from her back and ensnare his head and slam his head hard to the rocks. Toothless worm, you are not strong but weak to snap back your master, Naruko shouts, flaring her demonic power. Kuritsuchi was in awe of Naruko's power, those look like the chains of the Red Death, she says. They are, your dead teammate was indeed correct, I am Naruko Uzumaki Kiryu, but I was born Naruko Uzumaki Namika's daughter of the Yellow Flash and Red Death. However, the arrogant fools of this village hide this secret for their benefit, Naruko explains, jamming her boot heel into Byra's snout. So do you swear to kill me like all of Iwa, Naruko adds. Kuritsuchi shakes her head, what would it matter, killing you won't fix anything, she states, but eyes widen as Naruko kisses her. Kuritsuchi blushes brightly but doesn't pull back and gives in, we are alike, so I have an offer, I'll do to you as Lucifer did to me, I will take Byra's soul and leave you his power, essentially making you the new Yanbi. All I ask is your loyalty and friendship, Naruko says, as pulling back with a lick of her lips. Kuritsuchi stood stock still with red cheeks but calms herself down, so I would be a dragon, she says. Yes, you'll be able to turn into a full dragon, but mostly you'll have a Hanyu-like form when you call upon your power, Naruko explains and dispels her demon features. And you will still look human and call upon your Biju power to fool everyone as well, Naruko adds. Kuritsuchi turns her gaze to Brya, I accept, take the traitor, she declares. The pair return from the Kuritsuchi's mindscape as the blonde touches Kuritsuchi. Naruko's soulless eyes emerge as she focuses on Byra's soul, forcibly ripping it free and the dragon forming. Kuritsuchi cries out in agony as her skin sports mixes between steel gray, ash black and crimson scales, slowly covering her cheeks up to her eyes. Her pink pupils gain black slits and her back bulges as a pair of wings erupt, along with a steel gray and ash black dragon tail with a crimson underbelly. Her hands and feet become clawed, ripping her gloves and sandals, along with 2 horns on her forehead. Kuritsuchi rears up with a spew of blue flames from her mouth, revealing sharp teeth and a forked tongue. Brya struggles to his feet with a growl, puny scum, he roars, ready to burn the mash. Naruko raises her hand, take your place in the realm, traitors with your kin, she shouts. A ring of flames surround Briar, and black chains erupt to drag him to hell. The others will destroy you, he roars. Naruto ignores him and turns to Kuretsuchi on all fours. Broadcast, this will help you acclimate to your new form, Naruto says, a string of light touching Kuretsuchi's temple. Kuretsuchi braces on one hand as she gets to her feet, her tail slapping the ground. Need help, Naruto asks. Kuretsuchi slowly gets to her feet as her draconic features fade. No, that thing you did helped me, she says, hinging to a new uniform. Shall we commence our fight, Kuretsuchi states, brandishing her kunai. Naruto draws her own kunai and raises a ram sign. Genma drops his hand. Hajime, he shouts, as both women charge each other. Kabuto adjusts his glasses as he stares at the three sacrificial coffins, one containing Zaku and another holding Dosu. However, the third contains a random Odo shinobi as the original sacrifice was kneeling next to the coffin. You should be thankful, Kin, my new master will help you, Kabuto says. Kin has black eyes with very long black hair, almost reaching down to the ground, tied by a violet ribbon right near the end. She wears an Odo forehead protector, a pale green vest somewhat similar to a flak jacket with snake-patterned pants and scarf. Footstep caught their ears as Mitsuomi emerges from shadows with a duffel bag, wearing his Henley jeans and grey coat. Millard, I have someone who can aid us, Kabuto says. Mitsuomi tosses Kabuto the duffel bag. Go change, you should dress properly in my presence, he notes, lighting up. Kin looks at Mitsuomi and tries to hide her blush. Tell me, do you hate Orochimaru, he asks. I do, sir, we're only subjects to him for his whims. I was supposed to be in this coffin as a body for his Ito Tensei, but Kabuto stopped me, Kin states. Kabuto no longer works for the snake, but for my wife, Mitsuomi states. Kabuto returns and now dressed in a black pinstripe suit, white dress shirt and black tie with gloves. Much better, Kabuto. Now why do you think this Kin can help us, Mitsuomi asks. Kabuto adjusts his glasses with a smile. Kin is proficient in Genjutsu and can be taught by Kurenai, however her true value is she can lead Naruko-sama to her final sin, he explains. Mitsuomi arches an eyebrow with a stream of smoke, and that would be, he muses. One of Orochimaru's elites, Teiya of the North Gate, Kabuto explains, and Kin gasps. You can save Teiya-sama, she says. Does she hate Orochimaru, Mitsuomi directs to Kin. The Kunoichi slowly nods. Yes, the only reason she stays with Orochimaru is protect me, Kin explains. Mitsuomi taps a few ashes and takes a long drag. Return to your post, Kabuto, he says, and Kabuto vanishes. Mitsuomi squats down to look Kin in the eyes. To save you, your soul is the price, he says, blowing smoke in her face. Whatever you need, free me from Orochimaru's clutches, Kin pleads. Mitsuomi grins wide and pulls off his glove. Like a little bunny, he says, but makes a sideways look. Now that is idea, he adds, touching her head. Kin whimpers as Mitsuomi's power runs through her body. Suddenly two black rabbit ears emerge. Kin's hips and thighs widen to rip her pants as black fur covers her thick thighs to her feet, and a black cotton ball tail emerges above her ass. A cute little bunny, I could just peel off her skin, a voice titters. Kin looks up in fear as Mikoto emerges from the shadows, but Mitsuomi pats her head. Don't be scared, he soothes. Can you take her back to the estate, Mitsuomi says, standing up and helping Kin to her feet. Mikoto folds her arms under her bust. Of course, she says and smiles. Naru has won her match and collected the Yonbi. She even convinced Inoki's granddaughter Kuretsuchi to join our faction, she comments. Impressive with Kuro, we now have a foothold in 4 of the Great 5, Mitsuomi muses. May I make a suggestion on Suna, Shikamaru says, his eye and mouth forming in the shadows, and Mitsuomi quirks an eyebrow. I am fighting a troublesome woman named Tamari. She is the older sister of Gaara. The Ichibi container Naruko may be able to sway her to our cause in exchange for helping her brother, Shikamaru explains. Suna is aiding Odo in the invasion, Kin says, and all 3 look at her blankly. We know, dear, Mitsuomi says, patting her head. Kin's ears flop down as she was embarrassed, but Mitsuomi pats her head again. That is a good idea, Shikamaru, relay it to Naruko and about Kin here, he says. Now go with Mikoto, Mitsuomi directs to his little rabbit. Kin obediently follows as Mitsuomi light another cigarette. Now to deal with this annoying shadow, he thought, vanishing in a swirl of flames. Mitsuomi strolls through the village under the guise of patrolling, but his true aim was lure his shadow to the Uchiha district. Mitsuomi has been in a good mood. His plans in Kiri were coming to fruition, and now he had eyes in Kumo and Iwa. However, someone in heaven had decided to ruin his good mood. Mitsuomi blows a stream of smoke with a look to the sky. So one of the thrones comes to see me, he says, turning. Before Mitsuomi was a dark-skinned man, dressed in a preacher's clothes and grey trench coat. Hello, Lucifer, the man says. Mitsuomi taps his ashes with an amused look on his face. Hello, Samuel, what brings you to the world of sheep, he says. The monkeys do have a use, that is if you find the right one like yours, Samuel comments, thumbing his cross. Mitsuomi takes another drag with a glint in his eyes. Well, mine was given to me by your kind, he says, but his face becomes serious. Now state your business, he adds. I came to see you, Lucifer. It's been so long since the war. Samuel starts and tilts his head. You know, some in heaven believe you were right. These monkeys destroy everything they touch, he says, but Mitsuomi interrupts him. Yet you didn't follow me in the war either. I know some up there believe I was right about humans, however, none of them decided to join my rebellion. Instead they cower under the gaze of Kami and my siblings, Mitsuomi counters, approaching Samuel. The Prince of Darkness stares at Samuel with a smirk. There's that unyielding arrogance, Samuel says. That is my pride. Cowards who claim to see things my way are no different than the sheep, Mitsuomi sneers. Samuel clenches his fist and a silver gauntlet forms before slamming an uppercut to Mitsuomi's jaw. Black blood sprays as Mitsuomi staggers back, but Samuel is on him with a kick to the gut. Samuel sends another weighted uppercut, sending Mitsuomi over the Uchiha district's gates. Golden armor engulfs Samuel's body with 6 white wings as he appears above Mitsuomi, sending him to the dirt below. Samuel lands as Mitsuomi was on all fours and black blood running down his face. That should be your place, Lucifer. Kami should have smited you for your insurrection, he sneers. So that speech about monkeys was some bullshit, Mitsuomi mutters, spitting up a glob of blood. Samuel folds his arms as his radiance shines. It got you to drop your guard and show that pride of yours, he says, but freezes as something hot was next to him. Samuel barely turns and gets up a guard as Mitsuomi slams a punch through it, sending him back with a skid. Samuel was about to retort, but his legs gave out and he drops to one knee. How? He should be powerless, he thought. Mitsuomi tosses off his coat as the air around him becomes hot. You were foolish to face me here, Samuel. Outside this district you could have beaten me, but here, he says. Samuel gets to his feet with a gasp. This place. He shouts. Mitsuomi slowly draws his Mugenjin. Yes, so many died here. Their pain, their agony, their wrath is here making this hell on earth, he shouts. Samuel raises his hand to summon his divine lance, but the Mugenjin was sticking out his back. Suddenly his body was starting to grow hotter. Impossible. Impossible. How can you still have your grace, he shouts, his skin smoking. Mitsuomi clenches his sword as his body starts to double in size, ripping his henley and the blood burning way. Even if an archangel falls, their grace does not leave them, Mitsuomi says, pours more of his light into Samuel. This is the true power of the morning star. How could Kami-sama allow him to keep his grace? Samuel thought. His body starts burn and steam billows from his mouth. Spare me, Lucifer, I'll follow you, Samuel screams, his body burning from the inside. Mitsuomi's face starts to burn away. Cowardly trash, no better than the sheep, he says and looks up. Beggin, he utters, as a pillar of flames erupts to engulf Samuel and leaving nothing but ashes. Mitsuomi sheathes his sword and looks over his body. I should get back to the stadium, but a better plan would be to return to Dis and cool down. I used too much of my power, he muses, grabbing his coat and vanishing into flames. Sasuke vs Gaara. Naruko crosses her legs with a disgusted but silent sigh. Foolish monkey, she thought, watching the match. However, her senses pick up a huge surge of power to the east. Hinata, I wonder who was foolish enough to piss him off, Naruko thought. What was that? Hinata whispers. Naruko smiles and shows her teeth. My husband's unyielding pride, she muses. Hinata slowly nods and shivers slightly. I wanna see it, she thought. Naruko glances to the cage box. Very soon, monkey, you will pay for sin, she thought, turning back to the fight. Gaara has Sasuke on the defensive for the start of the match, but he soon uses his stolen moves from Lee to break through Gaara's gourd. Naruko notices Guy was there, but the older man was not his usual vibrant self. His team is broken. Lee dead. Tenten was nearly crippled by Temari, and Neji has 2 broken arms. I feel bad for him, however, as a queen a slide on what is mine ends in death, she thought. Sasuke quickly runs up the wall into a crouch and flash of signs. Suddenly lightning formed in Sasuke's hand with a chirping noise. Kakashi, that move you taught it, Sasuke, Kurenai comments. Kakashi slowly nods. Sasuke is a lot like me, and because of it I taught to him to breach Gaara's defense, he explains. Sasuke sprints down the wall and makes a beeline for Gaara as he braces his arm. Midori, Sasuke roars, piercing the sand orb containing Gaara. Suddenly Gaara screams in pain as white feathers start to fall, causing everyone to collapse. The cage booth explodes into smoke as Suna and Odo Shinobi start to attack. Hinata and Naruko pretend to expel the Genjutsu. What's going on? Naruko shouts. Hinata looks into the arena as Temari and Kankuro take Gaara, and Sasuke gives chase. Sasuke and Sakura screeches, giving chase. 2 Odo Shinobi attack Hinata and Naruko, but the pair take them down. Naruko. Kakashi shouts. What is it, Kakashi-sensei? Naruko replies, and Kakashi jams a kunai in Asuna Shinobi. I need your help. I'm giving a mission to you and whoever you choose follow Sasuke and stop Gaara, Kakashi says. Naruko and Hinata look between each other. Right, Kakashi-sensei, they say, and both leaps off. Shikamaru, follow us, Naruko shouts, passing him. Shikamaru mutters but gives chase behind Naruko and Hinata before long broke off to stop some Odo nin following them. Shikamaru lands in a shaded part of the forest as the 8 Odo Shinobi emerge. Noble leaf trash, but you'll die today, one says. Shikamaru yawns loudly, but a smirk forms. Funny, I was gonna say the same thing about you, he says, as his shadow tendrils rip them apart. Say this so dull. Shikamaru, taking a seat on a branch and taking a nap. Temari with Kankuro and Gaara race through the forest, but Sasuke was in hot pursuit, however, looks like I need slow him down, Kankuro says, breaking off from them. Temari continues on with Gaara as Kankuro draws his crow. Sasuke lands opposite him. I'll be your opponent, Kankuro states, and Sasuke smirks. No, I'll be your opponent, a voice says. Sasuke turns as Hinata was on a branch above them. Hyuga, why are you here? He asks. We never got have our match, I'm claiming it now, Hinata says and looks to Sasuke. Go after Gaara, she shouts. You seem confident, Hyuga. Beating Neji has swollen your head, Sasuke says. Hinata sweeps her hair into a ponytail and slips on her gloves, maybe, she muses. Sasuke smirks with a scoff and leaps off as Hinata lands on the lower branch. Ahaha, you two know nothing about the terror of this world, Kankuro says, revealing Crow. Hinata tilts her head with a smirk. It's you who does not know terror, she sneers. Crow shoots forth as Kankuro moves his fingers. One of Crow's arms produces a blade, but Hinata dodges. Poison user, Hinata thought, seeing the blade turn the branch a dark purple. Crow produces several more blades as Hinata continues to dodges, its chest producing 6 scythe blades. Hinata sends 2 kunai into Crow, but it Kawaramis with a log and rushes her from below. There, Kankuro thought, as Crow's mouth opens and 2 daggers shoot out. Hinata limbos under both blades and charges Kankuro, but he narrowly dodges her Jukin. As I thought, mid-range to long-range attacks, Hinata notes. Kankuro glares at Hinata, but smirk forms. Maybe, but let me show my Crow's true power, he says. One of Crow's arms opens and fire a poison smoke bomb. Hinata inhales some and fakes her sickness as she leaps, but Kankuro fire another blade, hitting Hinata right between the eyes. Hinata gasps and falls on a large branch with a wide-eyed look on her face. Kankuro land on the branch. She's a Hyuga, he thought. However, Kankuro's eyes widen in horror as Hinata grabs him by the throat. How? He thought. That hurt. Hinata sneers and squeezes tighter, but a smirk forms. A wash of white lightning engulfs as her form changes to a woman with shoulder-length sandy brown hair which frame her kind-looking face and indigo-colored eyes. She wore a simple outfit along with a long, light yellow scarf draped loosely around her neck. Kankuro's eyes widen in horror as Hinata grins. This should be appropriate, she says. Mom? Kankuro says, but it halts as Hinata drives her hand through his chest. Hinata pulls free and Kankuro falls through the trees, but a burst of demonic power reaches her. Byakugan, she thought. In distance was a partially transformed Gaara and Naruto fighting, or rather a demonic clone. She's going after Temari, a voice comments. Shikamaru appears next to her. What about Gaara, Hinata asks. Shikamaru yawns softly and smacks his lips. She'll collect him later, too many eyes right now, he muses. Music. Bleach-ost whisper of the apocalypse. Temari races through the forest as Gaara releases more and more of Shikaku's power. What the hell is Uzumaki thinking? She thought. Suddenly a gust of wind slams into Temari, sending her into a tree. The Suna Kunoichi shakes the cobwebs free but looks up and her eyes widen as Naruto was standing in front of her. Uzumaki, but what are you doing here? Temari says. Naruto flicks her ponytail. How much do you love your Gaara, she asks. Temari stares with a perplexed look on her face, but reaches for her fan. I won't let you hurt him, she shouts. A slight smirk graces Naruto's lips. Do you believe you can defeat me, she casually says. You're a genin in a peace-loving village icon, Temari starts, but Naruto flares her demonic power. Temari immediately drops her fan and falls to her knees to vomit. Impossible, it's like Shikaku, but so much worse, she thought. Still think I am just a genin, Temari. I offer you a chance to save your brother and your life. Pledge your fealty to me, and I will save Gaara, Naruto declares. Temari looks up with fear-filled eyes. Yes, yes, I swear fealty to you, do with me as you please, she screams. Naruto halts her power and Temari gulps in air. You made the right choice, Naruto muses, pulling off her gloves. Naruto grabs Temari's shoulders and digs her nails in, allowing her demonic power to flow in. Temari cries out as her back undulates, before 4 hawk wings erupt out her back with tribal tattoos on her form. Her eyes become eagle-like as Naruto releases her nails. Fitting for a Futon user, Pazuzu the Wind Lord, Naruto muses. Temari gets to her feet with a ruffle of her wings. Yes, Uzumaki-sama, she says. Follow me, Naruto says, and both leap off. The pair reach a destroyed clearing as Gaara in full Shikaku was battling Naruto's clone atop a white fox with 8 tails. However, the battle soon ends as the clone woke Gaara and causing Shikaku to crumple. Naruto sensed Sasuke and Sakura were nearby as the former was leaking his kai in jealousy. Take your brother and act normal for now, Naruto orders. Temari retracts her demonic features as Naruto's clone was speaking to Gaara before Temari and Gaara vanish. Naruto allows her clone to deal with Sasuke and Sakura. The monkey should be on his way out, she thought, leaping off. Song ends. Sarutobi struggles to hold on to Orochimaru's arms as the Shinigami pulls out the snake Sannin's soul. "You will die, my wayward student, by dragging your soul out," Sarutobi says. "Fukuku, clever sensei, putting on this show. You know I'll revive through my curse marks, and Konoha will see you as a hero." Making sure your plan on controlling the Kyuubi continues by naming Danzo or Jiraiya as Hokage, Orochimaru says. Sarutobi gives a soft smirk. "I made well inside the Shinigami's stomach, but Konoha will rule all," he says. "And who decided that?" A voice comments, freezing both Sarutobi and Orochimaru. A crack like glass forms near them as a gloved hand erupts out, followed by a boot as Mitsuomi emerges from the glass-like crack. Mitsuomi was wearing his white three-piece suit with black shirt and white tie. "Kiryu-san," Sarutobi says. Mitsuomi looks between the two, but his gaze drifts to the Shinigami. "I can't let you take the old man just yet, I have claim over him," he says. The Shinigami fixes its gaze on Mitsuomi. "Who are you, command me," it says, but its eyes widen, seeing the soulless black eyes. "Fallen one, true king of despair, Lucifer the morning star," the specter utters. Mitsuomi smirks as strolls forward. "The very same," he says, tapping Sarutobi on the cheek and stomping on Enma's head to dispel him. "Lucifer, impossible, you are Naruto's millionaire husband," Sarutobi states. Mitsuomi rounds Sarutobi with a grin. "True, up here I am that, but down below I am Lucifer, and not to sound cliché, but your soul is mine," he says, glancing to Orochimaru. "You second, but not today, my wife has plans for you," Mitsuomi adds, and Orochimaru's eyes narrow. "Wife?" Orochimaru hisses. "Yes, the one who gave you trouble in the forest," Mitsuomi says, and the snake Sannin's eye widen in shock. Shinigami take the snake's arms, "But Sarutobi is mine to face judgment, however I am not without generosity. I will allow you one soul in hell to take his place," Mitsuomi states. Sarutobi's eyes widen in horror as the Shinigami nods. "Very well," it says, slicing the ethereal arms of Orochimaru and pulling Sarutobi's soul from his body. Mitsuomi grabs Sarutobi in a one-arm choke as his real body falls. Orochimaru screams in anger as his arms slowly turn a dark purple. "You will pay for this," he shouts. Mitsuomi chuckles darkly as he pulls Sarutobi closer. "See you in hell," he says, as both vanish in a swirl of flames, followed by the Shinigami. Orochimaru falls to his knees as the forest falls, as does the barrier. Orochimaru-sama, Seiken shouts. "Get us out of here," Orochimaru shouts, as Jirobo and Kidomaru grab him. Tei and Seiken throw smoke bombs as the Anbu reach them, but they stop to check on the lifeless Sarutobi. First Circle Limbo. Lucifer and Sarutobi arrive in the Hall of Kings within the Circle of Limbo. "Welcome to the first Circle of Hell, a place where those who did not sin yet did not have the required faith in Kami to ascend to heaven. Their punishment is the denial of paradise. Pagan and righteous kings not graced by Kami reside in here," he declares. "Liar, blasphemer, traitor, heretic, glutton, hoarder, suicide," a loud voice booms. Sarutobi gasps as a huge creature stood within this hall. "Oh my god," he utters. It appeared as a half-serpent, half-human with a large crown fused on his head, two slit nostrils, chrome shoulder guards and no eyes. The creature sniffs and looks around. "Who enters my house of pain?" it utters. "Your master King Minos," Lucifer shouts. Minos leans down to them. "I smell a traitor, a glutton and a murderer," he utters. "I am no such thing," Sarutobi shouts, but Minos only laughs. "You would not be in Lord Lucifer's company if you weren't," Minos sneers. "He's right, King Minos is the judge of damned, and your fate belongs further below," Lucifer says, and pulls Sarutobi along, to vanish in flames. Second Circle Lust. Lucifer and Sarutobi reappear in what looked like a throne room filled with lavish things, but mostly with beautiful women in various states of dress on large pillows. Outside, a massive storm cloud swirl with the wails of damned. "The Circle of Lust, here are the carnal damned, those for whom desire conquered reason. The perv will end up here," Lucifer comments. The women lewdly fondle themselves with moans and giggles. Have you brought us new pet?" one coos. She was the only one dressed in a black nightgown with long black hair and pointed elf-like ear. "He reeks of lust less than that super pervert. He even had fantasies about his grandson's friend," she says, revealing her bat wings and spade-shaped tail. "I take it Anko told you, Semiramis?" Lucifer asks, and she nods. "Hi, will you leave him here to break him in properly before his true sentence?" Semiramis asks. Lucifer pulls Sarutobi into him. "No, that would be too good for him. I will show him the circles before he takes his place," he says, as both vanish again. Lilith appears with a scowl on her face. "Lucifer," she shouts, a childish manner. Semiramis titters into her sleeve as the other women giggle. "Too slow, mistress," she comments. Third Circle Gluttony. The pair appear on a path, but all around them was a sickening mire and incalculable number of people wailing in agony and eating the rancid mud. Sarutobi saw several larger people actually eating other people or themselves. "What is the place?" he mutters. Circle of Gluttony. What these gluttons could not satisfy in life and in death, here they shall be denied for eternity, Lucifer says and points. Sarutobi follows Lucifer's gloved finger and his eyes widen, seeing his old teammate. "Terefu," Sarutobi utters, but it was ignored as Terefu continues to shovel mud into his deformed mouth. He followed your actions and became a glutton of all things like all those for the ruinous fault of gluttony. These souls are broken by the rain and the mud. In a bit of ceaseless hunger Lucifer says, heading to the next circle. Fourth circle greed. Ape Satan fills the air as the pair arrive. Saratobi sees gold for miles, but gasps as numerous souls were being boiled in molten gold below their feet, and one he knows as Mizuki. Hoarder and wasters fight with sack of gold and gnashing teeth as an accursed wolf watches and mutters. Hokage Sama the demon sent me here, help. Mizuki howls, sinking below the molten gold. Circle of greed, a fitting place for you. How you schemed for my wealth and the wealth of others. I foresee many of Konoha coming here, Lucifer declares. Fifth circle anger. Roars of rage fill this circle as the pair see people burn from the inside and wailed in a thick sludge. Saratobi saw many of the Kagaya, Yatsuki and various clans here in the circle. See the souls over whom anger prevailed in the warm bath of the sun. They were hateful down here in the black sludge of the river Styx. Do they wish they had never been born, Lucifer says, as several try to attack. Heavy footsteps fill the air as a massive smoldering titan passes overhead towards the massive gates of Dis. Lo, a great plain of woe and cruel torment. Bitter tombs were scattered with flame, made to glow all over hotter than iron need be for any craft, and such dire laments issued forth as come only from those who are truly wretched, suffering, and forever lost. Saratobi laments and Lucifer laughs. Oh, further below brings true suffering, Lucifer muses. Sixth circle Hersey. Fires erupts through coffins and tombs as souls wail on inverted crosses. Here you will find the heretics and followers of every cult and pagan sect, all buried together and burning in eternal fire. Jashin followers are my favorites of this circle, however the next circle will appeal to you, Lucifer says. Seventh circle violence. The pair appear in a burning desert. You sent many to this circle by your choice, or by your hand. The circle of violence is divided into 3 rings. The circle is holy for the violent, but because violence can be done to 3 persons in 3 rounds, it is divided violence unto one's neighbor, unto oneself, and unto God, Lucifer says. Curse you Saratobi, burn traitor, several shout. Saratobi saw numerous members of the Uchiha clan. Damn you Saratobi, Fugaku shouts, blood streaming from his empty eyes. Your actions brought me a great deal of this clan, but thanks to that my wife was able to gain a very great tool, Lucifer says, pulling Saratobi to the forest of suicides. Saratobi saw rotted trees, but at a closer glance they were people, hears in a voice whispers. Saratobi looks up and gasps, seeing the withered form of Sakumo Haddock. He chose his comrades over the mission, however, thanks to you, and the council. Sakumo was ridiculed and decided to take his own life, Lucifer says. 8th circle fraud. 10 massive Malabulge lead the pair through the dark circle of fraud. 10 ditches leading down the final circle, each filled with its own crimes, its own forms of punishment, Lucifer states. Panderers and seducers, flatters, simony, diviners, grafters, hypocrites, thieves, evil counselors. I think Kaharu and Hamura will end up here, sowers of discord, falsifiers. Hear their wailing and be warned, because pass here is your damnation, Lucifer explains, leading Saratobi to the final circle and his true punishment. 9th circle treachery. Saratobi lands on the frozen lake of Cocytus. I don't deserve this, he says. Lucifer chuckles with a light of a cigarette. You don't deserve this, yet here you are. This circle is my own, and a fitting place for you, monkey. You betrayed your predecessors, you betrayed your successor, you betrayed your only smart student, and your family. This icy wasteland will be your tomb for all eternity, he shouts. Saratobi charges Lucifer, but the ice encases his legs, slowly rising to freeze his body. Do not worry Saratobi, your fellow fools will soon find their places among the 9 circles, Lucifer says, as Saratobi is frozen to his neck. Lucifer turns on his heels as he stroll among the damned. Fufufu, have you come to see me, darling, a voice muses. Not far from Lucifer was the chained form of woman in white, her silver hair containing ice crystals, and back dripping with black blood. Satania was here, Raffi, Lucifer says, eyeing her golden orbs. Raphia, her true name Raphaela, was Satania's mother and a fallen angel who followed Lucifer to hell. She was my back still stings from her whipping, Raffi comments, as Lucifer approaches. Lucifer grips Raffi's chin, a grin on his face. Admit it, you love when myself or Satania tortures you, a masochist through and through, despite your sadist nature, he purrs. Raffi licks his hand with a lewd look on her face. I learned from the greatest sadist watching you cut down our fellow angels during the war, but in the end, you were laid low by your one true love, she says, and Lucifer grips her cheeks tighter. Appa, what are you doing here, Satania shouts. Tormenting your mother and bringing a soul here for his eternal torment, Lucifer says, letting Raffi go. Raffi sees her daughter, but a frightened look of terror fills her as Satania stood with a frog in her hands. Satania, why do you have that? Raffi shudders. Satania gives a dark and amused look. Papa told me your fear of frogs, she croons. Lucifer pats Satania on the head. She takes more after me every day, he says, bellowing a sadistic cackle, and Raffi's screams fill his ears as he returns to the city of Dis.